Good afternoon and welcome to today's planning meeting. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting that the public can attend. I'm Councillor Majid Khan, the Chair of Planning. We're not expecting a fire alarm to go off, so if we do, please make your way out from the chamber, from the side door or from the back. If you have mobility issues, please wait outside and assistance will be provided. If you've got your mobile phones present, please do put those onto silent. And please don't disturb the conduct of the meeting. If you are going to record anybody speaking, only record those who are speaking at that time, but otherwise please keep your phones away. We will be recording the meeting today for use on the council website, and it will be on our YouTube channel as well. And by entering the chamber, you acknowledge that you may be recorded as a consequence. The meeting proceeds today on the basis that members have all had a chance to look through the agenda papers and are aware of the applications that we are going to be considering. And may I remind members that if you need to leave the chamber at any point during a debate or while an application is being discussed, you won't then be able to vote on that. So if you do need a comfort break or need to adjourn, let me know and we will do. Item number 1, apologies for absence. I understand we've had an apology from Councillor Lawson. Is there anybody else? And from Councillor Dawson and Lawson. So we've had 2 apologies from Councillor Lawson and Dawson. Thank you. Item number 2, there are no exempt items on today's agenda where we need to exclude the press or public. And item number 3, are there any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 4, which is minutes of the meeting that we held here on the 26th of August 2025. Can they be moved as a true and accurate record, please? They moved? Thank you. And is that seconded? Is that agreed? Thank you. Item number 5 is the applications that we have here today, and application number 1 up for debate today is 24/02284 COU, change of use of property from residential dwelling to a residential children's home, including external works to extend the existing driveway to allow sufficient parking and removal of entrance gate at wall at Highview, School Walk, Edlington, DN12 1PU. Owen is the planning officer. I'll hand over to you, Owen.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks planning permission for the change of use of Highview from a residential dwelling to a residential children's home, including external works to extend the existing driveway and removal of an entrance gate and wall. The proposed development would be occupied by up to 3 children between 6 to 17 years old, with a maximum of 3 care staff and 1 manager working at the property at any one time. The manager will work Monday to Friday from 9 AM till 5 PM. Care staff will work on a rota basis of 2 days on and 4 days off. The application site comprises of an existing 4-bedroom, 2-storey detached residential property located on the end of School Walk in Old Edlington. Internal works would be undertaken to accommodate the proposed use, namely the partitioning of the existing snooker room into 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, the partitioning of the downstairs office for privacy. 15 representations and a petition signed by 70 residents has been received in objection to the proposal, and there are 3 requests to speak today, 1 from the applicant in support, 1 from a local resident in opposition, and 1 from the local ward member in opposition. So this application, as you know, was previously debated at the Planning Committee held on the 26th of August. Members deferred the application for a site visit to assess highway safety and proximity to local services. The site visit took place on Friday the 19th of September in the mid-afternoon to coincide with schools finishing. During the visit, members walked around the premises, observed the access onto School Walk, and observed local roads including School Walk and Edlington Lane. The visit additionally involved driving to several local amenities so members could gain an understanding of their proximity to the application site, As the site visit was presented at the previous committee, members are already familiar with the application. As such, this presentation won't seek to repeat the information set out at the last committee, but will feed back on the site visit and provide clarification on the matters that form part of the reasons for deferral. In terms of highway safety considerations, I provided some photos of the relevant site characteristics. Just please note that some of these photos provide a mixture of from the site visit on Friday and visit I undertook earlier this year. The top two photos show the access onto the drive and the driveway itself. Just to note, obviously the driveway will be being extended with a grasscrete surface. The photo on the bottom left shows School Walk along to where it links up with Edlington Lane. And then the photo on the bottom right shows School Walk as it continues around the corner towards Bat Lane. The use of School Walk as a shared space for both pedestrians and vehicles on the road is considered safe, and is the current situation for the existing residential properties along the street. And whilst there is no formal crossing point for Edlington Lane within Old Edlington, the highway officer during the visit did point out that there is sufficient sight lines along Edlington Lane, and the breakages in traffic allow sufficient opportunity for crossing safely. Again, this is an existing situation for the properties within Old Edlington, and the proposal would not impact this. The applicant has provided vehicle tracking to show that the proposed driveway would be able to accommodate 4 vehicles plus a turning area to enable the vehicles to leave in forward gear. An additional vehicle parking space will also be provided within the garage, which the highways team are happy with. The site plan also shows that the fencing constructed along the boundary with the driveway and the adjacent yard to ensure this is secure. The Highway Development Control Officer has raised no objections to the planning application, subject to conditions requiring the parking area and vehicle turning space to be constructed and retained for the lifetime of the development, and the Highway Development Control Officer is available today for any questions. In terms of the proximity to local amenities and services, the applicant has provided a graphic to help demonstrate this. To give members a full understanding as to the proximity of the amenities, I've specified the walking distances from the property to different amenities as shown on Google Maps. So the location of the nearest bus stop was raised on Friday, and this is approximately a 3-minute walk from the property. Other key locations that we went to include Hilltop Primary School, which is 12-minute walk, Sir Thomas Wharton Secondary School, which is approximately a 17-minute walk, the local park behind Hilltop Academy containing both a playground and a public field, which is a 12-minute walk away, and the Spa and Nisa convenience stores, which are around a 15-minute walk away. It's also important to note that this is an existing residential property which is situated within the development limits of Old Edlington and within residential policy areas designated by the local plan. The site is therefore designated as a sustainable location for residential use within the development plan, and planning law states that decisions must be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. A couple of other matters were raised during the site visit which I can clarify. First, there was concerns about the surrounding area being more rural in nature. The proposal represents a secure premises which will have 1-to-1 staffing ratio during the day and CCTV on the premises. The management of the home itself is not a material planning consideration, but an operational matter that will be regulated by Ofsted. A memorandum of understanding will also be agreed with the police separate to the planning application to manage operations, and that's been included in an informative. Both the police and children's services had no objections and available today again to answer any questions. The applicant is also here and can provide responses on their operational procedures. Secondly, there was a query raised in relation to the fire safety standards of the windows. These standards are governed through the building regulations process, which is a separate process to the planning system. And then finally, the applicant sent an email containing a supporting statement to all committee members on the 16th of September. The statement contains an appeal decision, graphic in relation to the proximity of local services, crash map data for the region surrounding the site and bus stop times. The statement has been published on the council's website for transparency, and hard copies are available at today's meeting. The statement does not provide any new information that would affect the determination of the application. As previously stated, the area is considered a sustainable location. There are no highway safety concerns relating to the proposal. So in conclusion, the proposal to change the use of the site from a residential dwelling house to a children's residential home is acceptable in principle within a residential policy area. The use would not give rise to any unacceptable impacts on residential amenity, crime, the fear of crime or highway safety. The nature and scale of the use would operate similarly to a large residential dwelling house with multiple children. As such, the noise, crime and highway impacts experienced by the proposed use would not be materially different to the existing situation. There have been no technical objections from any consultees, including the police, Highways Development Control, Environmental Health and Children's Services. So overall, the development would be in accordance with the development plan and the benefits of the scheme outweigh any harm. In view of this, it is recommended that committee grant the planning permission subject to the recommended conditions.
Thank you, Owen. Is Miss Newbold here today? Hello, Miss Newbold. If you'd like to, you're speaking in opposition to the application, I understand. If you'd like to make your way to the front there. Miss Newbold, you've got 5 minutes to address the committee. When you press the red button, your time will commence, and I'll give you a 30-second warning to let you know that your time's about to expire. Ready when you are.
Good afternoon. We believe that this is a case of a square peg in a round hole. This house wasn't really chosen, but became available to the company because the owner is Miss Turgoose's uncle. He also owns the transport yard at the rear. The residents feel this explains the disparity about what is said about the home, its location and amenities, and reality. It explains, for example, why at the meeting in August, 8 months after the application was made, they didn't know where the nearest school was and other facilities were, or in fact that the church had been closed for over 60 years. Having visited the site, you know it's now a very pretty location, and it is. However, you'll also remember that from the ground floor and the garden, you can't see anything. You can't see anybody going past, nothing. The children would not be able to see any signs of outside life. Yet in their planning statement, the company said, "We under no circumstances want to put any young person in a home which is isolated away from real life. We think that the house will isolate them." They can't see anything. Please remember that. The electric gates you saw are supposed to be being removed, and yet contractors told us 3 days before the last planning committee that they were looking to move them, not remove them. We believe if they're retained, the home will look even more like secure accommodation, causing a further sense of isolation to children. But if they're removed, it's a danger to kids because they'll run down the drive straight into the path of traffic. They can't see it. It's no doubt difficult to assess an area during a site visit, but we live here and we know what goes on. We know what the traffic's like. So we hope you can appreciate the following points. The relevant planning matters are obviously highway safety and secondly, the effect on our residential amenity by the proposed business use. On the highway safety front, although quiet at the time of the visit, the official figures for the main road are actually 10,262 vehicles a day, including 409 HGVs, which we think is quite high. And in his document of the 4th of February, the highways officer referred to the poor visibility at the site. He, in fact, recommended boundary treatment to the site to improve visibility. That's not happened. The earthworks that would be required are substantial. But it's not happened and the danger hasn't gone away. It's not been resolved. He also disputed at the time the company's statement that change of use would not impact the traffic flow. He said it would. And bearing in mind it's been occupied for the last 30-odd years by no more than 2 elderly people. It's repeatedly been said, and we accept this, but that the house could be bought by a large family. But we want you to think about this. How many households of 7 people with 5 cars do you actually know? Then bear in mind that in addition to those people, you've got social workers, Ofsted visits, other official visitors, then you've got friends and family, and the large number of deliveries which will probably come to the property. We've also become aware of the following. The company's website say they can employ tutors to educate children in the home. That's more traffic that we weren't aware of. They arrange psychologist visits for one-to-one sessions. We didn't know about that. If the children attend school, it won't necessarily be in Edlington. There won't be Edlington children. They may be in schools throughout Doncaster or even in Rotherham. Will this involve multiple taxis coming and going? In Mr Herring's report to you, he says that homes are directed to residential locations so that residents can access local amenities with good access to facilities. We say there aren't any facilities in the village, and because of poor public transport, every single movement to and from that property will be by car. This hardly meets sustainable transport aims of either the local or national plans, and the additional parking and traffic will affect our community. The detrimental effect on road safety caused by the proposal and the increased traffic is obvious. It doesn't just apply to the home when they're leaving, it applies to everybody who goes past that entrance. It's on a blind bend. You can't see it and they can't see you, and I think you're aware of that. Finally, we believe that the increased traffic, which will be far greater than generated by any other dwelling in the street, would have an unacceptable effect on the amenity of this quiet street, its elderly occupants, and we ask you to reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Newbold. Councillors, do we have any questions for Ms Newbold? Councillor Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Newbold, I just wanted to ask about the electric gates. It's a two-part question. Do you know who originally installed the electric gates? And then you sort of seemed to say that having electric gates would make it seem like a high security place, but then you also didn't want them removed. So could you just clarify that?
This is why we say it's sort of like the house has become available and then tried to make it fit. The gates were fitted after the owner's son had his car nicked off the drive some years ago. So it was a security thing for the people that lived there. They've been there since before Kev left, 30 odd years. But as part of the planning to make room for the parking, the applicants initially tried to move them and to put them actually at the front of the property. And because the land does that, the gates would have to open outwards to be any good to anybody. That would be onto the highway. So that's how they actually did try to keep them. This is why we're saying we don't understand it. It's like, So they tried to do that, and then they were obliged, I believe, by planning to remove them because that was the only solution. But 3 days before we last met here, there was contractors on the drive on Bank Holiday Sunday, and they told us they'd come to have another look at moving them towards the highway from where they are, not taking them out. So as a child, we say, you turn off that drive, you see electric gates in front of you, you go in, you've never been there before, they swing shut behind you, you go into the house, you can't see a passerby, you can see nothing. It's like cold dates, it's horrible for me.
Councillors, do we have any other questions? No? Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to say, but you do realise that the house could be occupied by a large family, which would also have up to 4 to 5 cars, plus visitors. So there is that possibility.
I accept that, but it's difficult to explain a village where you live. I've lived there 30 odd years. There have never, and I mean never, been a family of more than 5, and I think we've had that once. Now, I know it could happen, but I say to you, how many families of 7 do you know with 5 cars? And that is, I think, for every single person here, you've seen the street. There was actually more cars on the street than we usually get, to be fair, when you came, we'd got builders in. It's a really quiet street, and on that street, there's predominantly, say, surrounding it, it's households of 2 and 1, right? Up the street, it's retired people, it's widows, it's that sort of makeup of family. So somebody could buy it, yeah, but if I were buying it, I would, in that big bedroom at the end, and it was my house, I'd be putting a massive ensuite in there and a dressing room and whatever. I just don't think it's going to be bought by a family of 7.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, and thank you for making representation. But, I mean, we attended that site meeting on Friday, and I parked right up at top because there was no room. So I parked up at top, walked down, and I can't help but think, when you're looking at some of the lovely properties I'm walking by on the right-hand side, from the top, on the left-hand side, what they must have thought when the bungalows in front were built, because some of them properties are really, really old, aren't they? And I just couldn't get that out of my head. that you've got those older properties and then newer ones in front. The people that are living in those must have had similar thoughts to what everybody else is having now, and it's changed, isn't it? And I just wanted to make that comment. It's not really a question, it's just I saw it and I could see how lovely it was, but they must have had similar thoughts.
I think the issue is the two cottages. There's actually a pair of semi-cottages. They're the original ones, and on the street it was a farm, and that was like, I think it was what the top one's called Walnut Lodge, and there's places like that. There were apple orchards and things, but you're going back to the 60s, and all the people that lived there at that point obviously are long gone. And that the original two buildings was a schoolhouse. So it wasn't a dwelling, you know, per se, it was a schoolhouse. So it's a little bit different in that sense. And the building that you're talking about, they all went up about the same time, really, apart from those two little dwellings. And they were a schoolhouse, so slightly different.
Councillors, do we have any other questions? Mr. Newbold, thank you very much. Thank you for your representation. If you'd like to make your way back to your seat. Thank you. Councillor Joanne Briggs, ward members requested to speak in opposition on this application as well. If you can speak from there if you wish. Are you going to come forward, or do you want to stay there? Yeah, you're more than welcome to stay there. You've got 5 minutes to address the committee. We'll start when you press the red button, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Good afternoon. Firstly, I would like to again clarify that Edlington Town Council did vote to reject this application. Mr Herring has been provided with a copy of the relevant minutes. I also want to remind councillors that every single resident objected to this development. The villagers have asked me to raise the following points. When we went to see the bus stop, we walked up the bank. From that vantage point, you can see clearly in both directions. The highways officer suggested, however, that pedestrians should access the pavement on the far side of Edlington Lane from the end of School Walk. From there, you cannot see fast-moving traffic.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you mind pushing your mic up a little bit out of the way, it's echoing. No, other way. That's it. Perfect. Yep.
You can still hear me? Yeah. From there, you cannot see fast-moving traffic coming over the brow of the hill. In recent years, there has been a fatality directly below where we were standing, caused by cars racing down the hill, and further 2 serious crashes into the church wall by the bus stop, caused by speeding vehicles. You can see there are no amenities in the village. At the last meeting, the church was referred to as an amenity. The applicants at the last meeting didn't know, but the residents do, that it's a redundant church which closed in the early 60s and is currently cordoned off due to falling masonry. It was also noted that the minibus didn't manage to get up the drive. It didn't attempt, but we believe this supports our view of it being difficult to access. In addition, when the chair left the property, the total lack of visibility from the drive exit will have become obvious. I refer to the new 85-page statement submitted in recent days by the applicant. There are a substantial number of errors. For example, there is a 35-page bus timetables. There is not one single reference to any bus stop in Old Edlington. It states the bus stop is 2 minutes and 200 metres away. It isn't. It states there is a bus every hour on Sundays. There isn't. It states that Helping Hands is a community centre for children. It isn't. They again refer to the church as being a community asset. It isn't. It's been closed for 60 years. It refers to a 10-metre wide grass verge, but fails to note that much of this is at a 45-degree angle. As with your company's original application, it makes references to facilities and amenities in Hatfield, Armthorpe, Stainforth and Barbidon. How is this relevant to Old Edlington? It again raises concerns about information being provided by them. The residents and myself maintain that the home will isolate children completely, particularly if electric gates are retained, making it feel very confined. The lack of regular public transport and the lack of amenities and facilities within the village, the nature of the business itself will generate much higher than usual amounts of traffic and in and out of that concealed entrance. Councillors don't usually like offices being made from the bedrooms. The applicant is also presumably aware of this, which is why at the very last minute they propose to petition off a section of the hallway. However, if planning permission is granted, Ofsted would not allow this. The available hallway space would be 8.6 cubic metres and the legal Ofsted minimum requirement is 11 cubic metres. Ofsted insists homes comply with all health and safety regulations, and so another space would have to be located. And one would assume they would probably revert back to it being in a staff bedroom. We have a very small, tight-knit, predominantly elderly community that feels safe at the moment. Finally, on a personal note, speaking as someone who has worked for almost 20 years working with children with behavioural problems, I am 100% certain this is not the right location for this type of establishment. And I respectfully ask you to reject this application.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you for, this is the second time you're coming, so thank you for coming and making representations. I've just got a quick question before I move on to the panel. You mentioned the bus stop not being there, but I saw a bus stop there with my own eyes. I saw two, one across from the other, and it only seemed like a short walk, maybe a couple of minutes away. Are those bus stops no longer in use, or?
What I said was, it wasn't the distance that they've said.
Thank you for clarifying. Councillor Anderson, you're looking towards me. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, you mentioned accidents on that part of the road. How many accidents do you know about?
Several bumps and whatnot, but we did have one fatality. And up at the top, we've had two very serious ones that have gone into the church wall, and the church walls had to be rebuilt.
And you put that down to speeding, I heard you say?
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's basically down to drivers' attitudes, isn't it? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's unsafe. If people are speeding, then that's, like I say, drivers' attitudes.
Yeah, that road is a 40-mile-an-hour road, but there's very few people stick to that speed limit.
Councillors, any other questions? No? Councillor Briggs, thank you. Thank you very much. You can stay seated there if you wish. You don't need to move. Mr. Nelson and Miss Turgoose, the applicants, they've requested that they speak in support of the application. Would you like to make your way forward? And Mr. So yeah, just there. Mr. Nelson, I know you're the applicant. Ms. Turgoose, are you the agent? Are you a joint applicant? Can I just clarify, do you have an agent who's representing you? You don't. So you made the application yourself, you did all the technical drawings and you made the submissions?
No, we've got a surveyor who did a lot of the technical drawings for the driveway, the parking, the turning circles, and we also employed their planning committee, planning officer to come in and look at it and do the final report.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. The only reason I was going to... The only reason I'm asking is that your representation that you emailed out to the committee is very unorthodox, and it's not the way that things are done. So if I was going to just clarify, if your planning agent had asked you to do that, but as an applicant in person, it's often easy to make that mistake. So I won't hold it against you. That's all.
No, we was actually advised to send that out to committee members by the planning people, what we employed by Pegasus Group, who created the statement, and then advised us to send it out so it could be took into consideration before the site visit.
Okay, would you like to turn your microphone off a second? So I think you've been given very, very poor advice there, because it goes against how the committee operates and it's very unorthodox to do so. And so I'd be going back and having words with your planning agents. It's not the way the things are done. And like I said, if you'd done it in mistake as an applicant in person, I'd give leeway for that. But you telling me that your agent had told you to do so, it's very alarming. And if I can just ask officers as well who are present today from the planning committee, can we be abundantly clear to agents, applicants, especially when an application comes forward to committee, that any representations need to go through the portal and through to yourselves, and rather than us directly as planning committee members? Can that be noted, please? You've got 5 minutes to address the committee. When you've got 30 seconds remaining, I'll let you know, okay? And please feel free to... Are you wanting to share the time? No.
Have we got 5 minutes each?
You have 5 minutes between you, so you can have 2.5... You can split that time however you wish. But I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining, and your time will start when you press the red button.
At Rise Above Care, we're more than a business, we're cooperative parents. We are here to provide safe, loving and stable homes to children and young people who have experienced trauma and instability. Our current home, which has been operating successfully for 3.5 years, is testament to this. 2 of our children have lived with us for over 2 years, and our other child for 1 year. They don't call it a placement, they call it their home. That's because we've created a nurturing and safe environment, and we want to extend this opportunity to more young people. The claim that there are insignificant amenities is untrue. Doncaster and surrounding areas, including Edlington, provide numerous resources and attractions for young people that are acceptable and preferred distances from the property. These include such as shops and schools in walking distance or short drive, Edlington Woods, which offer beautiful therapeutic outdoor spaces and play areas, which are identified in our location risk assessment. There's such things like Yorkshire Wildlife Park and the Dome, which are excellent local attractions. The property as well offers excellent in-house amenities, a large garden, spacious living area, a calm rural setting which our children find healing and peaceful. Children from traumatic backgrounds often benefit from open spaces and tranquility that rural areas provide. Public transport is also available. There's obviously a bus stop outside the house, and there's a second bus stop on Tate Avenue. So in terms of the community, we're not here to disrupt the community, we're here to contribute to it. We've built positive, respectful relationships with our previous neighbours who have told us they feel safer and more connected since our arrival. We prioritise becoming a positive part of the local community. It's the heart of what we do, and we believe the local neighbourhood should see us as part of a new supportive generation, one that is stepping up to meet the growing needs of vulnerable young people. The sad reality is thousands of children across the country need stable homes. Due to a shortage of placements, many are being placed in unsuitable environments, including barges, Airbnbs, hotels, hostels, and high-growing numbers of unregulated settings that offer very little safety, consistency or care. By refusing this application, we risk contributing to that shortage. While efforts are being made nationally to phase out unregulated placements, this can only happen if there are enough regulated caring homes like we aim to provide. We are part of the solution, not the problem. These children deserve the same acceptance, support and opportunity as any other child. Denying them a home because of the status as a care home is unjust and simply unfair. So there's concerns around the school placements as well. There's several mainstream and specialist schools which we've recorded within our location risk assessment. Children in care are legally prioritised for school placements due to their vulnerable status. Our young people are either transported by car if needed or even walk to school, just like the thousands of other children in Edlington. The footpath and road safety, so whilst there may not be a designated footpath directly outside the house, there are safe walking routes used by the public every day, something that has obviously been deemed acceptable by the highways. Our young people receive regular road safety education and are supported one-to-one by our trained staff. Safety is our top priority, just as it will be for any other parent. This house has been safely used by others for decades. To assume that young people in care cannot safely navigate this space is just unfair. Carl and I take great care when choosing the locations of our home. This was not a last-minute decision because the property came available as suggested. A huge amount of thought, planning and responsibility goes into every step. This is not just our business, it's our life purpose. Our homes are registered and regulated by Ofsted, and we are held to strict standards. We avoid a change of lives and are asking for the opportunity to do the same for more children who need safe and loving homes. We hope you can see how important this decision is, not just for us, but for the young people whose future depends on it. We respectfully ask you for your support in approving this application so we can continue the work we are deeply committed to. This application is not just about change of use, it's about positively changing lives. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, do you wish to add anything, or?
I'd actually had a list of points that I wanted to discuss, which I heard some of the councillors bring up during the site visit, and I just wanted to clarify some, but I don't think I'll have enough time to do it within the minute.
Yeah, you've only got a minute, so okay, fine. But thank you for making representations again. Thank you for coming again to the meeting. Councillors, are there any questions? I'll bring in Councillor Dennis first, then you, Councillor Anderson, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just clarify the situation with the electric gates from what the resident said earlier? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There is there is some confusion by the residents. There is plans to move the gates. The gates, in accordance with the turning circles and the size of the driveway, what's needed, only need to actually step forward if they do so by under a metre, which still allows the gate to open and close exactly the same as it did during the site visit. It doesn't bring it any closer to the road, what would stop the cars being on the drive while they're parking there. So there is, and this was actually explained, I believe, to the residents by the workmen at the time. There is still enough room for a vehicle to park on that drive, be stationary while the gate opens, allows them to enter into the property, and then the gate shut behind them. The vehicle won't be sticking out onto the highways, the gates won't be opening onto the highways in any way, shape or form.
Councillor Anderson?
The works to extend the existing car parking areas. How many cars do you envisage being able to park in there at any one time?
As the plan shows, it's only going to be for up to 4 cars what will be parking there. We will be removing the flower beds which is giving it the extra room so they can do that. And then there'll be enough room for a car to be parked in the garage as well. We don't intend to try and overload the driveway. We don't need to. The amount of children and staff what's going to be there, we don't need to overload it. So that's why the proposal will be put in for 4 cars and 1 in the garage. And that's why, like you've already had it submitted, there is the turning circles with the ample room. It literally is a matter of removing the flower bed and moving the gate forward under a metre.
And as I'm looking at it, there's 4 staff at any one time, 3 at weekends, is that right? I appreciate there'll be visitors and stuff like that.
Yeah, there'll be 3 members of staff what are supporting the young person one-to-one, and then there's a manager Monday to Friday, what will be attending the home 9 till 5. The manager's not there on weekends, and like you say, there will be the occasional visit from time to time from a social worker. I know it was mentioned about Ofsted coming out to visit. Ofsted come out once a year to do their inspections. The other inspections what we have from Reg 44 visitors, they only happen once a month, so they are very limited as well. And as regarding visitors, what was also mentioned from therapists and things like that, and tutors, most of our young people, we aim to have in school where we can. Same with therapy. If therapy does take place, we have got separate areas. We've got an head office with a separate room, and we've got places where a lot of time we like young people to go to the therapist because we like to keep it separate from the home. I'm not saying there's never ever going to be a therapist visit the home, but as a rule, therapy usually takes place off-site, so it keeps it separate from home life.
Just a slight issue, it's obviously when the staff switchovers. I can't see anywhere, what time will those staff switchovers be?
The staff switchovers will be at 7 a.m. in the morning, so they'll come in first thing. There'll be probably a 15-20 minute quick handover, and then the staff will be leaving site. We do stagger where we can the rotas, so it's not a 3 staff switching over at a time. It's kind of staggered, so where possible, 1 staff will be leaving in the morning while 1 staff comes on, and the other staff are on staggered rotas. Some days, yes, there will be 2 staff arriving and 2 staff leaving, but it is staggered for the majority of the time.
Yeah, I think the staggered would probably work better, wouldn't it? Yeah, so.
That's how we do it in all those homes anyway, and that gives the young people consistency. They know what staff are coming on, what are going off. That's why we tend to work on a 2 on and a 4 off rota, so the young people know exactly what staff members are going to be on site for the 2 days. They're not waking up in the morning to a different face in the home. They also know that when the staff go off, they're going back to their families, and there's a different staff members coming on. It also gives staff members downtime to relax and be off the site as well without risk of burnout.
I'll bring in Councillor Kidger first, then you, Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, taking in mind the age range of the children from 6 years old, when we had the site visit, there appeared to be very little outside play area. While it's a substantial property, there seemed to be very, very little play area for young kids, around the rear of the property. What would your comments be on that?
In terms of obviously like our outside, a lot of our young people do enjoy like staying in the home. So we have such things like trampolines, games in the garden, just as you would in a normal family home. You know, the kids do things like baking, drawing, art. We have games rooms and things like that. So there's lots of times when young people actually don't want to go to a local park. They want to spend time in that beautiful garden, enjoying with the staff and who they think, who they see as their family. But obviously there's parks, and we take our children to all numerous of parks, don't we, around, some far, far away, because some parks are a lot better than others. But we really do, we do a lot of amenities and, fun days and things like that in the house as well as outside.
Yeah, I take on board that, but I say it seemed to be a very small area. Just my comment.
I think the point you're also trying to make is there was nothing visible there when you was on your site visit. That's because all changes, alterations to the home would be made if planning is granted. That's when the next stages would be moving forward. So that's when we'd be looking at renovations to the home, interior decorating, exterior, putting the different toys and things, what the young people, or trampolines, what will be used then. We don't do that until hopefully we get planning permission granted. That's when we then move on to the next stage. And that's also a readiness for the Ofsted inspection, who comes out to see whether if the property is fit and up to standards to move forward.
Yeah, I take on board what you're saying. It doesn't alter the size of the garden, though, does it? Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think what Councillor Kidge is asking, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what Councillor Kidge is asking is the garden space, in his opinion, doesn't seem very spacious, and he just wanted your comment on that. That's what he was asking, not rather than parks or visits or fun days or baking and such, just about the garden itself. Was that correct, Councillor Kidge?
Sorry, the garden obviously to it's huge. Obviously they open the garden space at the front.
I think where the confusion might be is around, if you turn your microphone off, is around the fact that you're talking about some of the flower beds are going to be removed, for parking and such. So I think it's causing a little bit of confusion. But once we've finished having our conversation, Owen can show a diagram, Councillor Kidge, and he can show the garden space itself with the measurements on there, just to clarify that. Councillors, do we have any other questions? Councillor Dennis, sorry, forgot about you.
It's okay, Chair. Thank you very much. Ms Turgos, you mentioned about sort of the if the children were placed in schools further away, they'd have transport to there. How does transport work to schools or for other healthcare visits or therapists? How do they get to and from there?
So we have a homes vehicle. So obviously the young people use that. Obviously in terms of appointments and like therapists and things like that, things are different on different days. So one young person would, let's say, have it on a Tuesday. You wouldn't have all the young people needing the car at that one period of time. As well, obviously staff also can have business insurance on their car as well, and the staff car, which then obviously makes another car available. So in terms of that, in terms of schools, so either it can be via us, or sometimes we've got young people who have taxi transports, but that's if they go to a school obviously far, far away, which is quite unusual. We usually hope that our young people go in local schools, just obviously because they're not, Doncaster kids wouldn't then mean they don't go to the Doncaster schools, they just go in the area schools. So obviously the ones what you saw on your site visit, a lot of our young people, if deemed suitable, would attend them schools as well. So that maybe some kids may walk with staff, or things like that.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Transportation, when you the staffing levels, everything else, when a child is in that car, so let's say going to school or wherever it's going, is there an escort within the car? Or, because obviously if you need an escort in the car as well, that's another member of staff to cover?
No, so just all our young people are one-to-one. So obviously there'd be a staff member driving, and then young person would either be at front or in the back of the car. We don't have no escort staff. It's just literally one-to-one staffing ratio.
And with them being one-to-one with the staff, if there was an incident, let's say somebody needed to go to hospital, how would you cover that?
So obviously our young people, if they are staffed at one-to-one, which our young people are, then they will be low-level behaviours and things like that. We match the young people to in terms of staffing, and there's support on the home as well from other staff members. But if they are going out on activity, it wouldn't be deemed unsafe. We'd never put a staff member in an unsafe situation. So their behaviours or levels wouldn't be to the extreme where another staff member would be needed. Our staff are trained, obviously. We have numerous of training. So that's by ourselves or external providers, so that they've got lots of training on how to behaviour manage as well.
It wasn't excursions that we're talking about, it's an emergency situation. So if you've got a child that's had an accident, for example, the one-to-one is assisting this child, maybe calming him down, whatever, then you need a driver as well. What would happen in that kind of situation?
So we have an on-call support, which is 24 hours, 365 days. So obviously if there's any extra support needed, on-call are called and they come to the house. That's how our protocol works.
And in the same vein, following on from Councillor Cox, if any of the staff members were taken ill, how long would it take for another member of staff to come and cover for that member who's fallen ill or needs to go to hospital, or what are the contingencies that you have in place?
There'd obviously, if it's in the home, the young person would never obviously be left alone because there's other young people there and other staff members. Obviously, in terms of on-call, we're around 15 minutes away is our period between the houses.
Thank you for clarifying. Councillors? Yep, please.
So, an on-call member is a member of staff that normally works in that home, then, is it?
It's management and managers and deputy managers, so it's higher level.
So it's only associated with that one home. So you've got like 3 homes, but it's only the ones that are associated with the one that they work in.
Yeah, so we have obviously all year round on-call rota, obviously for different homes and locations, which obviously just differs each week.
Councillor Cox?
Are these children Doncaster children, or are they coming from wherever?
It can be mixed. Obviously, we get referrals from everywhere. Ideally, we look for Doncaster young people to keep them obviously in the area. That's obviously our priority and local authorities' priority as well, that young people remain in area. So where absolutely possible, it'd be Doncaster young people. However, sometimes Doncaster young people, it's not safe for them to be in the local authority, so then they'd move out of authority. But obviously, yeah, where possible, it'll be Doncaster. And we are on the White Rose framework, which obviously Doncaster don't like to place young people if they're not on that. We have been on that, and we've been on that for 2 years now.
How many homes do you currently run?
We've got 2 at the moment.
So this would be the third? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
Thank you, Chair. I was umming and ahhing whether to raise this one or not. Members of the public and the councillors raised sort of inaccuracies and discrepancies between information you provided and factual, like sort of around the church and stuff, and about parts about the property. If the application is approved, how would you work with the community to build a better relationship? Because, as the ward member said, every property or every person in the village has objected to this application.
We build relationships by what we usually do is we invite the local community into the house. We've had it before with our first home, the exact same thing, and we build our relationships with them. You know, when we're doing community events with the kids, we do like a lot of like Macmillan and coffee mornings and things like that. The neighbours will be invited to that. We celebrate events like that. For example, you know, we've bought a defib for our local community, haven't we? We've first aid trained our staff in the Sheffield area. With the community, yes, so it's really important to us to build them relationships, and obviously we hope to aim. What we've said is obviously if this passes, we'd love to have a meeting and, you know, get any worries or concerns out, because we don't want the neighbours to be worried. It's the unknown. We understand that, I really do, and we've had it with both homes. We really have, and we've never had one complaint, and we really get along with our neighbours now. We really do, and they think the world of the kids. They bring Easter eggs round at Easter, they give them Christmas presents, and we do the same for them. And honestly, I wish one of the neighbours could be here now, because they spoke exactly like what the community is speaking like now. But honestly, we're not here for that. We're here to look after children. You won't even know we're there. If we didn't have to go through all this, you probably wouldn't really ever know that we were a children's home, because we're not there to, make the community unsafe or anything like that. We're here. We're doing a good thing, and we think it's a beautiful house, and we want the kids to live there, and we want to have a good relationship with the neighbourhood. We really do.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that none of that is necessarily planning considerations. However, in terms of community cohesion, afterwards, it's useful to know that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Yep, please.
Cheers, Chair. Can you just verify where your other homes are? Where are they? One's in Sheffield. What address is it?
We've got one up. The first home is in Sheffield. It's in the Mosbury area, close to Crystal Peaks.
Have you got a street or wherever it is, please?
We don't really provide that sort of information. It's confidentiality.
So it's what you say.
And this is going to be.
What area? Sorry.
It's in the Mosbury area of Sheffield.
I just wonder, have a look how populated it is. That's all I'm looking for.
Actually, the house, what we've just been speaking about, the one in Mosbury, the local amenities are actually further away if you were to measure it.
Councillor Wood, each home, when it's granted permission, it's done on its own merit. So the one in Mosbury would have been decided by the Sheffield City Council, and they would have based it on the merits of that application.
I understand that, but there's 76 people live in this area and 70 is objected. So I just want to understand what sort of area we're looking at when we say that all the residents around it took it on board. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, and with that application, there may have been many objections and many, supporters as well.
Be, but it gives me, from my point of view, I just want to understand it. And the one in Barnsley, what area is that? Sorry.
The one in Barnsley is close to Blenheim Park. So Blenheim Park, Lock Park in the Blenheim area. And just to also kind of clarify what you've just said about objections, the first home in Sheffield, that actually had 96 objections raised against it. It is on a very affluent housing estate, and there were even concerns that properties were going to lower in price if we was to open near them. In the 3 years we've had that property, I think they've actually gone up in price. Not because of us, obviously, just with the economy. We haven't affected it, and the same neighbours, what was part of those objections, are the ones that are very much on board now.
If there's no other questions, councillors, no? Thank you, and thank you for being so patient answering the questions. If you'd like to go back to where you were seated. Committee members will now go into debate. Does any member wish to comment? But before that, we'll just get some clarifications from Owen and...
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points to pick up on there for clarification purposes. A lot of what we've just been talking about and the questions that you've raised to the applicant, I can absolutely understand why you're keen to understand operationally how those things will work, but just do have in your minds that we're here to make the planning decision. Other operational matters will be covered by other legislation requirements. You've heard mention of Ofsted already, so do just bear in mind we're to look at the planning impacts rather than those wider operational considerations. And just a couple of other points of clarification. There was mention around the size of rooms, and Councillor Kidger mentioned the size of the garden in particular. They all meet the space standards in planning policy terms, so are acceptable on that basis. And the confusion around whether or not the access gates are to remain. Page 30 of your papers shows that the gates are to be removed. There would be a requirement for those plans to be built out in accordance with prior to the occupation of the children's home if planning permission is granted. So if the operators wanted to put any gates up in the future, there may be a requirement for them to come back to us for planning permission. But as it stands, those gates are shown to be removed, and that's what you're assessing this afternoon. And just to confirm the point that Councillor Anderson made much earlier in the speakers around the size of the home as a family home as capable of accommodating a certain number of cars on the driveway or demand for cars on the driveway, and it's that objective point that we're looking at for the context and the starting point for the assessment than what people might choose to do or experiences that the area's had in the past about levels of occupancy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any member wish to make any comments or ask any of the officers any questions? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a few, but my first one is for you, Chair. There was mentions raised about sort of as you exit the site in a vehicle, about sort of the visibility on the way out. On the site visit, you drove onto the site and then presumably drove out forwards as well. What was your visibility like as you exited the site?
My visibility was absolutely fine. I was just concerned there were lots of residents nearby, and I didn't want to, as chair of committee, end up causing any casualties. It would have not been a good look, so I was careful. But the visibility was absolutely fine. There were no issues in accessing the site or exiting. Similar to, I think it was Councillor Cox or somebody else, I did drive around the site as well and went back up past the bus stop and came back round, and yeah, visibility was clear.
And then a follow-up from that one, Chair, for Owen and Highways is whether there's any Highways concerns about the visibility either entering or exiting the site.
I'll go first just to give sort of the background. So this sort of originally went out to Highways, and as I think it's been mentioned already, it was recommended that it could be improved, the sort of displays coming out. But doing so, there's potential, because it's in a conservation area, potential issues, removal of the wall in conservation area and the impacts that have, and it was purely a recommendation. And then considering vehicle movements would be a similar level to a residential property, it was not considered that was necessary. And obviously Highways have since responded with the sort of latest plans with the increased parking, and they have no objections, obviously subject to the conditions for the turning area and parking area to be retained. I don't know if Andy wants to jump in.
I don't think, I think I said in my response that we couldn't insist on the visibility displays because there was no actual pedestrian footways to actually have a visibility display on. So we assess School Walk in terms of the highway as being a shared space street. So that's its classification where we're concerned. Yeah, it's probably about 90 years old or in that sort of ilk. So it's not necessarily the same sort of type of street we would have nowadays, but we have to classify it somehow. So the other classification that we look at is the amount of vehicles that use that street. So for a shared space street, we only classify it for under 40 vehicles per hour. So for it to be classed as a shared space street, 40 vehicles per hour up to 40 vehicles per hour would have to use that, which it is classified in that range. So in terms of its use, in terms of how people access onto that street, then there's a very similar examples all the way along School Walk, Back Lane, all the way through Old Edlington, that are very similar to this particular access. So it's not uncommon, and that's the reason why we're okay with the access. So, was that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, this is one for Highways as well, if that's okay. That part of School Walk, any recorded accidents and basically the circumstances behind them accidents?
So I think the accidents were all down to driver behaviour, as I think you mentioned or somebody mentioned. We can't dictate driver behaviour. Yes, I think somebody said about a fatality. Again, that is driver behaviour, nothing to do with pedestrians. And I think the last actual recorded, we've not got the data yet, but I think the last recorded accident in that area was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So we have looked. There's nothing actually at the junction. So whilst there may be incidents of speeding, there may have been collisions, these are not particularly recorded as a Stats 19 accident. So no, we have no concerns in relation to accidents on that road. driving behaviour is something we can't control.
Councillors, any other questions or any comments if you wish to add? Councillor Wood?
Is there anyone from Children's in the cask? Just wondered about amenity. Just understand what is required from an amenity point of view for the children's home.
It would vary. Just access to normal residential amenities, you know, good shops, schools, bus stops, transport links, within a reasonable distance. But it's difficult to say what is specifically required. It's more down to what the home provides, what services the home provides.
So, are you aware of where Old Edlington is compared to Edlington?
I know vaguely where it is. I don't know the area really well.
So, we had a map earlier. It's about, I think, about a mile, 1.2 miles from Edlington in terms of amenity. But locally, there's no amenity, meaning literally on the doorstep. So, that's what I'm trying to understand when we talk about amenity. Would it be something that you'd expect to walk to or travel to? What would you actually expect to have and where? That's what I'm really looking for.
It's difficult for me to answer that question because it varies very much. We know that this is more of a rural setting than some of the homes, but there are still schools, both primary and secondary, within the area. There is a shop. There is Edlington within a reasonable distance. There's a park. So there are all the things that you would expect. And we know, again, it is a quieter area. But for some of these children, that's a really good thing from a therapeutic point of view, to live in that kind of setting.
So I think what I'm leading to then is the amenity that you're talking about, which is obviously subjective on what we're actually asking for. Old Edlington is you've just described a rural location. Have we got any other children's homes in Doncaster with a similar sort of designated area that we can currently compare to say this is we have experienced this before and it is a good setting?
Apologies, I can't answer that question. That would be a placements question. I'm more children's commissioning. But what I would say is it is one of the kinds of settings that we would look for.
Chair, just very briefly, if I could come in on the planning policy side of things for locational characteristics and where we would seek to direct development of this nature. So there are no particular or specific policies that direct children's homes uses to particular areas within certain proximity to amenities and what those amenities should be. So we're governed by the more general spatial strategy that's set out in the local plan, and this does fall within one of the defined areas, defined village, but a defined area as having access to the services that we drove around and saw on Friday. And that's linked to the settlement hierarchy and how we seek to direct development. So whilst there aren't any specific policies governing this type of use, we are in an area that is defined within that spatial strategy, not in a situation where you're, for example, in open countryside and in a more isolated position. So I hope that helps.
Councillors, any more questions or comments? Councillor Dennis?
Thank you, Chair. Owen, I've got a couple of questions about conditions. First one is about condition 5 and the change of that because of the appeal decision that was made in a recent case.
Councillor Dennis, can I ask you, if you mention a condition, just read it out for the benefit of members first of all, on YouTube, and second of all, people who are here today as well. Sorry, am I putting you on the spot?
Bear with me, Chair. Basically, as part of some of the children's homes applications, I believe there's a standard condition that the council applies, which relates to security measures. That could include some relating to windows, doors, etc. This pertains to sort of CCTV, and I believe where I'm hoping Owen's going to clarify is because there is an existing form of CCTV on this property, it's changed, and because the council's been brought to appeal about this before, that's why it's changed. I'm hoping Owen can dig me out.
Yeah, so you're asking why the condition is the way it is. Yeah, so obviously with reference to that appeal decision, which obviously it used the sort of what was our standard condition, included measures, additional measures as well as CCTV as the extra sort of glazed windows, strengthened windows, for example, and sort of obviously appeal decisions are a material consideration, obviously, in our decision making, and what that said was we have to obviously take the security measures on a case-by-case basis. In this case, the police have identified that this area as a low-risk area of crime. There is existing CCTV, although that will be replaced, and that condition allows for that. It's obviously one-to-one staffing. The windows do have locks on them as well. So there are all these sort of security measures which resulted in us deciding that this was the appropriate condition for this application, and the police are happy with just CCTV in this case.
Thank you. And Chair, if I may, I wondered whether we could propose another condition relating to as a business for them not to park on the highway because of sort of the shared nature of the highway and because of the adequate space on the site for vehicles for that property, whether there's scope to add on a condition relating to no parking on the highway.
I think that I'll defer to Andy if he wants to add anything here, but no, we can't control by condition people parking on the highway. It's outside of the application site, and that happens all over the place, and it's not something that we're able to control by planning condition. What I would say is there's nothing to stop us adding an informative that strongly encourages the operation of the home to ensure that any guests or visitors are making arrangements to make sure that they can park within the site. We've identified that the site has the capacity to accommodate the number of cars that would be required for this nature of use, so they should be able to do that without needing to park on the highway, but having something that encourages the applicants to think about that when they're doing their operational management plans and travel plans and what have you would be my recommendation there. So we can do an informative, but we couldn't control that by condition.
Understood, thank you, Emma. So yeah, if we can do an informative, that would be good, thank you.
Councillors, anything further to add? If not, is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to the imposition of planning conditions? Is that a question or is that a proposal? Is that seconded by anybody? Seconded. Can we go to a vote then, please? Please indicate those in favour of granting planning permission by raising your hand, please. Four. And is there anybody voting against? And abstentions? Planning permission is granted. Thank you. And thank you to all the contributors as well for taking the time and effort. And thank you to the residents as well for making your views known. I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. And it is a quick 5 minutes. So please come back into the chamber quickly. Welcome back to the meeting. Thank you. We're going to move on to application number 2, 24/02106 FULM, change of use of land for use as a motocross facility, which is a sui generis category with associated engineering and landscaping works, alterations to site access and siting of ancillary portable buildings containers at field off Green, Black and Ruddle Lane. Is that green back or is it green black? No, it's in my... I've got it as green black on my papers, so there's a typo somewhere. Green Bulk, I thought so. Green Bulk and Ruddle Lane, Clifton, Rotherham. Susie's the planning officer with this. I'll hand over to Susie to talk through the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is being brought to committee due to significant public interest, both for and against the application, and the recommendation is for refusal. The application seeks full planning permission for the permanent use of the site as a motocross facility, with associated engineering and landscaping works, alterations to the site access, and siting of ancillary portable buildings and containers. The application is partially retrospective because the motocross courses have already been installed. Other proposed works are yet to be installed, including additional jumps to the courses. Until now, permitted development rights have been used which enable the temporary use of the land for up to 14 days for motocross activities. However, the associated engineering works to create the courses was not permitted development and required planning permission. And the current application proposal seeks to make this temporary use permanent, i.e. for 365 days a year. So just to introduce the application site, this could originally comprise an agricultural field of approximately 12 hectares. It's bound on all sides by highways, so Ruddle Lane to the west, Green Bulk to the north, Longleys Lane to the east, and the M118 motorway, that's the M18 motorway to the south. The nearest residential property lies at Longleys Poultry Farm, which is just beyond the motorway. Otherwise, the nearest village is Clifton, less than a kilometre away, and the villages of Braithwell, Micklebring and Old Edlington also lie within 1.5 kilometres to the south, southwest and northeast. The site lies wholly within the green belt as designated by the local plan, and the land is also categorised as Grade 2 best and most versatile agricultural land, as well as a mineral safeguarding area. So the following slides contain photos showing the site and surrounding area. The first slide includes aerial photos which have been provided by the applicant and show the installed motocross courses without the proposed additional jumps. And the subsequent photos were mostly taken at the recent committee site visit that took place on Friday afternoon. Here we have the installed motocross courses. A view again across the motocross tracks showing some of the engineered levels. A storage area in the southwest corner of the site. A view north across the proposed grassland parking area. The site entrance at Ruddle Lane. A rough soil track access within the site adjacent to the western boundary. And then these photos were taken on my site visit earlier in the year. Views along Ruddle Lane from the site access. So moving on, we have the proposed site plan for the development. So the existing site entrance in the north of the site at Ruddle Lane will continue to be used with no upgrade works proposed. 2 other existing field accesses will be blocked off. It's proposed to plant wildflowers on banking around the 2 motocross courses. And the motocross courses that you can see are in the southern part of the site. They're an adult course and a junior course. There's to be a rough soil access track surrounding each of the courses to provide access for emergency vehicles. The north of the site is to be a grassed parking area with free containers to provide toilet reception and food kiosk facilities to be sited adjacent to the western edge of the site. A storage area, as mentioned, is proposed to the southwest corner. 3 additional storage containers are to be located here. Security CCTV is proposed at intervals around and within the site, and additional new hedgerow planting is proposed behind the existing hawthorn hedgerow, which already bounds the site, and other ecological enhancement measures, including bat and bird boxes and reptile log piles, are also proposed. Here we have the elevations of the proposed containers. These range in size from 9.3 by 3 metres to 12.2 by 2.4 metres. Then we have the elevations and plans of the proposed new earth-made jumps for the motocross courses. It's currently proposed to install up to 2 of the large jumps and 6 of the small jumps. Both of these sets of plans are in the appendix to your report. The proposed opening hours of the facility are to be between 09:30 and 2000 hours, 7 days a week, but to be closed at dusk in the winter. Currently, external lighting does not form part of the proposals, but this can be controlled by condition should planning permission be granted. So there are a number of considerations which have been taken into account in the planning assessment of this application. These relate to the principle of the development in the greenbelt, the permanent significant loss of high-quality agricultural land and land safeguarded for minerals, the landscape and visual impact of the development, noise and the impact on the conservation area, highway safety, traffic, ecology, biodiversity, and economic, social and cultural benefits to the application. So first of all, the principle of the proposal. The development has been assessed as being inappropriate development in the greenbelt. Whilst the provision of outdoor sport and recreation facilities can be an exception to this, this is only where the development preserves the openness of the greenbelt and does not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. And the development does not do this. Instead, it will harm the openness of the greenbelt, both spatially and visually, for reasons set out at paragraphs 7.9 to 13 of the officer report. So the development is therefore contrary to local and national greenbelt policy and unacceptable in principle. And as a permanent form of development, the proposals would also lead to a significant loss of best and most versatile BMV agricultural land and land safeguarded for minerals, and is contrary to local plan policies 60 and 61 in this respect. In other matters, there are open views across the site from some of the surrounding road networks, and there appears to have been little consideration given to the landscape and visual impacts from the development, with built elements distributed widely across the site. Proposed mitigation planting is not considered sufficient to address this. And there are also significant concerns on the impact of noise generated by the motocross facility on the amenity of residents of nearby villages and on livestock in surrounding fields. A noise impact assessment submitted with the assessment is flawed, as it does not assess the noise generated during the actual motocross event at the site, nor is it provided sufficient mitigation measures on how noise levels would be controlled. There are also concerns that such noise will have unacceptable impacts on the tranquil setting of Clifton Conservation Area, so there are conservation concerns in that respect. Now, in terms of highways, as mentioned, there are no upgrade works proposed to the site entrance, and this has drawn an objection from the Council's highway officer. The existing entrance is an unmade field access and not suitable for such an intensification of the use without upgrade works, to provide suitable surfacing and to ensure adequate visibility to passing traffic on Ruddle Lane. Whilst there is sufficient space for parking within the site, the current proposal involves vehicles parking on grassland and poses unacceptable highway safety hazards from the transport of mud and debris onto the highway. Officers have not raised highway traffic concerns, as the number of vehicles proposed to access the site, 20 a day plus staff, is not excessive, and a condition could be used to control numbers and arrival times if necessary. There's no public transport access to the development, nor footpaths on the surrounding network, and visitors and staff would be reliant on private transport to access the site, and so it's considered to be an unsustainable location. In terms of biodiversity and ecology, enhancements are proposed. However, there's been an objection from the Council's ecologist as the proposed species of hedgerow to be planted behind the existing hedgerow is not appropriate and is likely to damage the priority habitat in that hedgerow and the ecological networks around the site. A condition would also be necessary to ensure that a tree adjacent to the site entrance would be protected in the event that required site entrance upgrade works are undertaken. Now, it should be noted that changes have been requested from the developer to address the outstanding concerns relating to highway safety, noise and ecology. However, due to the objection in principle to the application in terms of its greenbelt location, the applicant has chosen not to make any further changes to the scheme. And so these matters also weigh against the proposal in addition to the in-principle objection. Weighing in favour of the proposal are the creation of part-time jobs and the support of businesses in the local area from visitors to the facility, although any benefits are likely to be limited and overall support of the local economy is yet to be satisfactorily evidenced. There would be some benefit from the proposal in the effort to tackle illegal off-road biking through the provision of a legal facility to practice the sport, addressing an unmet need in the local area, and this was given some moderate positive weight in the assessment. However, overall, the modest benefits to the proposal were not considered to outweigh the in-principle objection to the development, nor the technical objections in respect to noise, highway safety and other matters. Instead, it represents an unsustainable form of development in the open countryside. And the application is therefore proposed to be refused for the reasons summarised on the screen here and included in more detail at section 8 of the officer report. I have a few requests to speak on the application. Firstly, we have, speaking in opposition to the application is Jeanette Gran. We also have Councillors Jeremy Leaf and Paul Manning from Conisbrough Parks Parish Council. And Councillor Rachel Reid, Conisbrough Ward Member, all speaking in opposition to the application for up to 5 minutes. Speaking in support, we have Paul and Sue Digby sharing 5 minutes, and also the agent, Caroline Chave. We have our highways, ecology, environmental health and neighbourhoods and wellbeing officers in attendance who will be able to answer any questions the committee may have as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Miss Gran, you here? Hello, welcome to the chamber. I understand you're speaking in opposition to the application. You're going to have 5 minutes to speak. Your time will start when you press the red button, and I'll give you a 30-second warning when your time is about to conclude. We're ready to start whenever you are.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeanette Gran, and I am speaking as a resident of the little rural village of Clifton. My house lies some 650 metres from the proposed field. I have lived there for 23 years, and like many of my neighbours and fellow village residents, we have chosen Clifton because it is a beautiful location, surrounded by greenbelt and agricultural land. It is quiet and peaceful, and we make great efforts to respect and enjoy its conservation village status. There are far-reaching views across the countryside, and most people in the village enjoy rural pursuits, such as a peaceful stroll along the rural pathways in and around the village, with their dog or grandchildren, daily horse riders, cyclists, runners, bird watchers, or me on a mobility scooter. It is a habitat rich with wildlife, and every little sortie reveals a variety of species in the fields, hedgerows and trees, which are a delight that we treasure. Many of the Clifton residents also spend a lot of time in their gardens, often well into the evenings during the long daylight hours of summer, and of course weekends when working people and children spend time outside together, relaxing. All the above quality aspects of living in Clifton that so enrich our mental health and well-being would be sorely diminished if the application goes ahead in this particular location and vicinity. Negative issues which would impact me and residents
include the aggravating noise, whine and revving of the bikes for hours on end, disturbing local residents when they are out walking or enjoying the peaceful countryside or their garden, dust in the summer and more mud on the roads in wet and winter, using 30 acres of valuable crop-growing land for a leisure pursuit, which could much more appropriately be sited on a brown field or industrial park site closer to the people who want to use it. It's an inappropriate location against greenbelt and agricultural land policies, planning policies, as detailed in Susie Gross's comprehensive officer report. It would mean damage to the ecology and habitat, oils and grease on the land, noise and disruption to wildlife and nearby livestock and horses. Containers and equipment storage units, as well as high-banked earth mounds, detract from the openness and rural views across the land and will be seen as blots on the rural landscape. The entrance and exit is on an extremely dangerous piece of rural road near a sharp bend and blind summit. It is an accident hotspot, black spot, and there has already been 2 deaths on this stretch of the road, to my knowledge. The first one was where I was the first to attend the accident. People driving past the site when an event was taking place would be curious and just dump their vehicles on the side of the road or all over the grass verge, creating increased traffic accident danger, as well as destroying grass verges and dumping more mud on the road, whilst they have a look to see what's going on. It's human nature. People driving on the adjacent motorway could be distracted by the bikes leaping about. It falls within the magnesium limestone protected zone. Planning goes with the land, so I understand, not the person. So although this application is for a motocross facility, it could change hands and be used for many other invasive and detrimental events in the future. The number of opening hours and days of operation is totally unacceptable to a rural community. The site will encourage illegal off-roader motorbikes and quads to use the site unofficially, to break in, steal equipment and cause damage and antisocial behaviour. They are not
have 30 seconds remaining.
Sorry?
You have 30 seconds.
They are not the sort of people who would pay to use a facility properly. If security cameras, fencing, lighting is used, this would be a further eyesore. The motocross track is of no interest whatsoever to people in Clifton or local residents. We would bear all the negative aspects while people from out of the area who are unlikely to be Doncaster Council taxpayers would have a noisy blast. I therefore confirm my strong opposition and objection to this application on all of the above grounds and those that have been extremely well described and documented in Susie Gross's officer report dated the 23rd of September 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Gran. Committee members, do we have any questions? Councillor Anderson? Ms Gran, would you mind turning your...
Thank you for that. You say you live 650 metres from the actual proposed site. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Right, thank you. So the events they have there now, how loud is it from your property? Does it affect sitting in the garden? Is it really loud? Just give me an understanding of how loud it is when there's events on at the moment.
I live on the edge of the village, just one of the first houses that you come to at the end of Shipman Balk, which is the road that comes off Ruddle Lane. I don't know whether you've got a map up there somewhere. Did I not answer your question properly?
Well, it's how does the noise impact you on event days? Because they do have 14 a year now.
Yes, I have complained before when I'm out and about in my garden or around my house or near the church, actually, and I've spoken to a couple of the other residents, and we all said at the time how intrusive it was and what could be done about it.
So it affects you to the point you wouldn't want to sit out when there's event days? Yes, it affects me
on the race days. They've already had some race days, although may not be fully populated on those days. I don't know. but there was enough to cause disturbance and disruption. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Thank you for your representation. We've also got members of the parish council here today, haven't we, who wish to speak in opposition. Could you just introduce yourselves first, please?
Yep, I am Paul Manning, the chairman of the Conisbrough Parks Parish Council. I've been chairman for some 20 years.
I'm Jeremy Lee, I'm part of the parish council, but I won't be speaking.
So, Councillor Manning, so you'll be speaking, so you'll have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Okay.
Your time will start when you've already pressed the red button, but when you commence, your time will commence, and I'll give you a 30-second warning when it comes towards the end. Is that okay? Okay.
This planning application has been fully considered by the parish council, and as residents, many of the residents are very concerned and have expressed their views in many of our parish council minuted meetings. We fully acknowledge the 60-page report that Susie has very kindly written, and we agree with all the points made by the planning officer in her report and the recommendation for refusal. On behalf of the parish council, I give the following information in point order from Susie's report, sections 8, page 57 onwards. Point 1. It goes fully against the Greenbelt policies of Doncaster, including Doncaster's Green Infrastructure Strategy that is still current until 2028. Policies referred to by the planning officer's report. It's harmful to its rural character. I'd like to add here that the applicant also states creating employment, but I hardly think in a rural community this would create employment for anybody in the area. Highways access. As the parish council is very familiar with this site, we would add the following points that were not brought up to the committee's attention on their site visit in the reports. There was a fatal accident referred to by Jane. A fatal accident in recent years only 50 metres from the site entrance, where there's a rise and fall in the road, and it was very clear in one of the slides that Susie presented. This was a local resident out jogging. If permission were given, any alteration of the entrance sightlines may well include 50 metres removal of greenbelt hedge so that the sightline could be improved. We have natural, narrow rural lanes which would become cut-throughs to events, especially with cars bringing trailers with bikes on the back, or even vans. Nearby Five Lane Ends is an accident black spot. The noise level, referred to by Jane, autumn and December 15th last year, the weekends last year, the noise levels were very clear. It was reported to parish councillors, to myself by residents, and residents phoned Doncaster Council at the time. It was a Saturday. You got the message, the council offices reopen on Monday. For leisure homes, please call this extension. The noise reports from Doncaster Council officers have quite rightly highlighted legitimate concerns, and there's an impact on livestock and the adjoining stables right next to this site. These noise reports have been made, but Doncaster Council's noise team has never come out to do a recording as far as we know. It would fully affect the recognised tranquil nature of Clifton, the first Doncaster declared conservation area of the 1970s, which in several reports is stated correctly as exactly 650 metres away. On the slide, you could see that is exactly 1 field away from this application. It is 650 metres away, and that is also included and in some of the council officers' reports that it is 650 metres away. Paragraph 6 and 7 of Susie's report stand by themselves. In addition, the Parish Council, since written its reply, dated the 27th of January, wishes to bring the following points to attention. Those supporting the application do not refer to the actual planning considerations or its merits, merely that they have used the bike track, even one stating for the supply of the company's parts to the motorcycle industry would be good for them. Those supporting the application, the Parish Council notes, were from persons well outside the local area and our green belt. and the majority were not even Doncaster or our parish council taxpayers. Equipment and containers and ancillary portable buildings, they are not in keeping with the Greenbelt. Another council department already at this very moment is taking legal action for containers to be removed from nearby land that is on Greenbelt. The former 3 ward councillors prior to the May election and the present 3 ward councillors since the May election have all expressed opposition. They too receiving residents' comments and complaints.
You have 30 seconds remaining, councillor.
Illegal bikes and quad bike problem in this area is identified by South Yorkshire Rural Police, different department from the police department that sent the email reply, and it's noted in there. Illegal use of the course outside hours and gaining access through boundary hedges could easily be made. We don't think that illegal use with people that have no licence and no helmets would hardly pay to use a facility. Parking application states 20 vehicles accessing...
Councillor Manning, thank you. Thank you for your representations.
Okay.
But your time's up. Panel members, do we have any questions? Councillor Dennis. Councillor Manning, if you wouldn't mind turning your microphone off.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Manning, you mentioned about there being stables right next door to the site. Whereabouts is that?
If somebody can put up the plan, I could show you.
I think just a description would suffice. Do you know from
the bottom corner of the field goes into a triangle next to the motorway, and immediately there's a little copse, and then the opposite side is a set of stables right at the end of Beacon Lane where it meets Ruddle Lane. And the stable owners have expressed their opposition.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Kidger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the site, there's much play about horses. We can only work on evidence. The evidence was there's no horses. We didn't see horses, cows, pigs, or any livestock whatsoever.
Right, there's adjoining horses in the stable block right next to it, but also during the day you will see loads of people in the area, not just from our village of Clifton, but Micklebring and Braithwell, exercising their horses on our country lanes. And that is, I can tell you, that's every day.
Yes, well, I say, we didn't see that.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Wood.
Thanks, Chair. Is it fair to say then the horses are rotated more on race days than any other day, with M180 being so close to where you just described?
That was what some of the residents, or should we say some of the people that rent the stable blocks in that area were complaining to Parish Council about, yes.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Thank you for your representations. You can remain seated there if you wish, or you can go back to your seats. Yeah. Councillor Reid, I understand that you will be speaking in opposition to the application. You have 5 minutes to address the panel. Your time will start when you press the red button, and I'll give you a 30-second warning to let you know your time's about to conclude.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members, Clifton is a small rural village valued for its peace, quiet and countryside character. The proposed motocross facility is out of keeping with this setting and would cause serious and lasting harm to our community. First, noise and amenity. The applicant's own plans show a 10-acre adult course, a 2.5-acre children's course and jumps up to 2 metres high. Motocross is an extremely loud activity. In a quiet open landscape, that noise will carry for miles. It would shatter the tranquility of Clifton and neighbouring villages. The National Planning Policy Framework is clear. Planning decisions must avoid significant adverse noise impacts. This proposal fails that test. Second, traffic and safety. Access is via narrow rural lanes such as Ruddle Lane and Longleys Lane. These are not designed for heavy vehicles. They are used daily by walkers, cyclists and families. Yet the site layout shows large parking areas, toilets and even a food kiosk, all indicating substantial visitor numbers. The extra vans, trailers and cars would create unacceptable risk on roads entirely unsuited to this level of traffic. Third, harm to the countryside. This is not a modest or temporary track. The plans include multiple shipping containers, reception and toilet blocks, fencing, CCTV and a food kiosk. In effect, it is a permanent leisure complex. Such development would industrialise the parish landscape and erode the rural character that national and local planning policy is meant to safeguard. Fourth, ecology and biodiversity. The applicant acknowledges existing ponds, hedgerows and wildlife features, including bat and bird boxes. Regular high noise motocross activity will inevitably disturb wildlife and damage habitats, directly conflicting with national policy on protecting biodiversity. Chair, members, this is the wrong development in the wrong place. It offers no overriding public benefit, yet it threatens lasting harm to residents, walkers and the countryside we are entrusted to protect. I respectfully urge you to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Committee members, councillors, do you have any questions for Councillor Reid? No? Thank you, Councillor Reid. You can remain seated there if you wish, or you can move to the back. We have Caroline Shave, the agent, who will be speaking in support of the application.
Sorry, Chair, we have Paul and Sue Digby first. There was extras that were not on the script because I didn't receive them. They're on the pre-notes.
Yep, thank you. Yep, Paul and Sue Digby. Hello, welcome to the chamber. Okay. So you'll be speaking in support of the application, Mr. Digby?
Yes, I will, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have 5 minutes to speak, and when you have 30 seconds remaining, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
You can start whenever you're ready.
Today, I want to talk to you about motocross, a sport that requires skill, bravery and determination. Motocross is more than just a sport, it's a way of life. It teaches riders discipline, focus and perseverance. For kids, motocross can be a transformative experience. It helps build confidence, self-esteem and physical fitness. It also teaches valuable life skills like risk management, problem solving and teamwork. Motocross brings families together too. Parents and kids can maintain bikes together, sharing knowledge and skills. In fact, motocross is a sport that has been passed down from generation to generation. Many riders start out as kids, learning from their parents and grandparents, and then go on to become professional riders themselves. Motocross promotes physical activity outdoor. Exploitation and healthy lifestyle is an era where screen time dominates. Motocross offers a refreshing alternative. Regular physical activity can help kids develop strong bones and muscles, improve their cardiovascular health and boost their mental well-being. In recent years, we've also seen a significant increase of numbers of girls participating in motocross. This welcomes a trend and one that reflects the sport's growing diversity. Girls are just as capable as boys when it comes to motocross, and it is fantastic to see them embracing the sport with enthusiasm and passion. Another exciting development in motocross is the shift towards the electric bikes. Electric motocross bikes are not only exciting to ride, but they are also better for the environment. They produce zero emissions and zero noise pollution, making them a more considerate option for riders and the community. This makes them an attractive option for riders who care about the planet and want to enjoy their sport in a more sustainable way. However, in this area, there is a significant lack of tracks that cater specifically for kids. The existing tracks are mostly sand-based, which can be challenging terrain for young riders to learn on. Sand tracks can be unpredictable and difficult to navigate, making it hard for kids to develop their skills. That's why this proposal track is perfect. The ground conditions are ideal for learning, providing a safe and controlled environment for kids to develop their skills. What sets this venue apart is the extra large grassed area that can be used for circuit and fitness training. This is a crucial part of training for motocross as it helps riders build the strength, endurance and agility they need to perform at their best. No other track in the area offers this level of versatility, making this venue a truly unique and comprehensive package. This venue aims to address a massive problem in the area, illegal off-roading riding, by providing a safe, legitimate space for motocross enthusiasts. This venue can reduce the occurrence of illegal riding and promote a more responsible and sustainable approach to the sport. In conclusion, motocross is a sport that offers numerous benefits for individuals, families and particularly kids. This proposed track is a vital addition to this community, providing a safe and comprehensive space for riders to develop their skills, which is ideal ground conditions, versatile training areas and committed to sustainability. The venue will help promote physical activity, mental well-being and a love of the outdoors. By supporting this venue, we can help build a healthier, more active community and provide a positive outlet for kids to develop their skills and passion. Let's celebrate and support this amazing sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Digby. Thank you for attending and making your representations. Panel members, do we have any questions for Mr Digby? I'll go to Councillor Kidger first and then to you, Councillor Cox.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the main objection to this development is one of noise, and I take on board what you were saying about electric bikes. Would you, or would the applicant assure the committee that RAC-ACU noise levels would be observed, and if any bikes came that had been de-restricted, noise levels would be measured, and if they were over those limits, access to the site would be refused?
The noise levels have normally been sorted out and they don't come in the right level of noise. They have already been checked at some point.
Yeah. But would any bike coming onto that site to compete, there are standard tests imposed by RAC-ACU for competition. I think is it 3/4 revs, something like that? There are decibel limits. I'm assuming the applicant would have access to a sound meter, be able to measure the noise, and if anything was over the limits, they would be refused access to the actual track.
That's correct. And I'm sure any questions about that, the agent herself will sort that out on the next speaker.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Do you live close to this site?
No, I don't. No, sorry.
Do you live in Doncaster?
No.
Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Yeah, just picking up on what Councillor Cox said there. How many bike places you drive past to get to the one that you're talking about?
From my house alone, not many. It's probably one of the closest, because they are very far between.
It's just that I'm looking on Google Maps and there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's 12 from Worksop up to Brampton. Basically, it looks like there's good coverage, considering I know that it probably is a popular sport, but I don't see what one that we're talking about at the moment, other than the style of track, which I understand is a bit of a benefit for new starters. Other than that, there's nothing that says to me that we really need this extra facility in Doncaster.
Well, I think the agent will answer those questions for you herself and explain it all to you.
Do we have any further questions for Mr Digby? Mr Digby, thank you very much. Thank you again for attending and making representations. If you'd like to make your way back to where you were seated previously, and Caroline Shave, the agent, if you'd like to come forward, please. Like the other speakers, you'll have 5 minutes to address the panel, time will start when you press the red button, and I'll give you a 30-second warning when time's about to conclude. Ready to go whenever you are.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm the agent for the application. I'll be happy to answer your questions about the proposals in particular. Mr Digby, who spoke prior, is a passionate supporter of the project from the motocross community, and thankfully they're able to come and explain to you that passion. But I'm more in a position to answer the questions. And he's not from Doncaster, like he said, but with the committee meeting being in the middle of the working day and school day, unfortunately we couldn't get one of the young people who attend school who's also in support of this project to come speak about it, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, you've heard from Mr Digby how important this proposal is to bettering the lives of those in the motocross sport. And you've also hopefully seen in your late papers prior to the committee how your own neighbourhood and wellbeing team would look to establish outreach programmes at this facility and support it to help tackle the antisocial behaviour caused by illegal off-road biking. Everyone will be familiar, I expect, with the problems caused by illegal off-road biking in the countryside and in urban areas. This proposal is not that. It's the complete opposite of that. It's part of the solution, providing a safe, controlled environment and training to develop people in the sport. And this has been recognised by the police and by your own neighbourhoods team. The presence on the site and the CCTV installed would also help to deter fly tipping from the local area, and this has also been recognised by the police as a benefit of the scheme. The proposal is for a sport for which there is insufficient provision in this area for young people. Existing tracks in the area don't cater for teenagers looking to develop in the sport. The existing tracks are geared more towards adults and competition. Yes, the proposal is in the green belt, but national planning policy says that sporting uses are appropriate in the green belt, and you've seen for yourselves on the site visit what limited visual impact the proposal has, and that the tracks only occupy part of the site, with the majority of it remaining open. Yes, the site is Grade 3 agricultural land, but it has not been confirmed as best and most versatile land. Even if it was, the size of the site is below the threshold for Natural England taking any interest in consultation on the loss of the site as agricultural land. So we haven't undertaken a study to identify whether it's in Grade 3A or 3B. It's certainly not in Grade 2. There's no point in doing that because it falls below the threshold for consultation, in our view. Furthermore, we're aware that due to the shallow soils, the land is only suitable for shallow crops. Yes, the land may have mineral reserves under it, but we're not proposing any permanent buildings on the land, and the mineral reserves aren't going anywhere. And I would question, are the mineral reserves really more important than improving the lives of young people across the borough and beyond in this current era? So set against the benefits of the proposal, you've heard objections from the local community, and it's now up to councillors to balance these considerations. I would urge councillors to consider whether this proposal could be supported in principle, taking into account the agriculture, green belt and minerals considerations, and whether appropriate safeguards can be put in place by planning conditions to protect nearby communities. I'm sure that councillors will be concerned to ensure safe access, and first of all I must make clear that nobody will be coming to the site on their bike. Bikes are brought to the site in vans and trailers, often with a few riders sharing the same vehicle, frequently families in the same vehicle. And you've seen for yourselves that there's ample room to park and turn within the site. The field is very well drained and doesn't create mud. The objection from Doncaster Highways to the access was on the basis that details have not been submitted of an upgraded access. The applicant has no objection to providing an upgraded access, but to design that at this stage would cost thousands of pounds, and faced with a recommendation for refusal in principle, then they could not commit to that. However, if councillors were minded to support the application in principle, then the applicant would be happy to accept a condition requiring the access to be upgraded
You have
to local
30 seconds remaining.
standards, and visibility displays kept clear or obstructions. As far as noise is concerned, you've experienced the site for yourselves and how it's already a very noisy environment caused by the motorway, and this drowns out the motorbike noise. As confirmed in the committee report, the Environmental Health Officer had not received any prior noise complaints about the use, which had been going on under temporary permitted development rights for over a year. In conclusion, with adequate safeguards, this important facility could be allowed. We could have access, opening hours restricted. The applicant is only looking to use the site for 22 hours a week.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you very much. Before I go into the committee, I've got some questions of my own, if you wouldn't mind just clarifying. During your representation, you said that did you say that your bikes are going to be driven to the site and no one will be riding the bikes to the location?
That's right, they're off-road bikes, so they're brought to the site on trailers in the back of vans. They're not ridden to the location. And if I may answer the question that was raised earlier about the bikes being allowed on site, yes, we could have a noise management plan which provides for bikes not being allowed on site unless they meet set decibel criteria.
I mean, maybe I'm just really naive, but I've never witnessed, that I've never witnessed people on off-road bikes riding around. So you and the applicant can categorically give us assurances that no one will ever ride to the site. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, the sport is that people bring their specialist bikes for this type of use to the site on trailers in vans and ride them around on the site. And it's all part of managed sessions where people book in and book their bikes onto the site, meet the criteria to be able to ride around the site safely and meeting the noise criteria.
Thank you. And second of all, I mean, if planning was to be granted, have you discussed any plans of decontamination with the applicant if the land was ever reverted back to agricultural use, and what the implications of that would be?
Well, the applicant, if granted planning permission to use the site on a permanent basis, is committed to the site for long term, so we haven't discussed that, no. But if it was to be changed back to agricultural use, then there could be proposals considered at that time, if necessary, and testing undertaken of the site and dealt with if there was anything of concern.
Thank you. And in relation to the highways issues that you mentioned and you raised, and I think they were mentioned in the report as well, what was your advice? Was your advice to the applicant not to commit to a plan of how the highway would be upgraded, or was it something which the applicant decided not to do?
It was my advice. It's a really difficult situation that they'd already committed tens of thousands of pounds to all the reports that you will have seen in the application package. And when faced with a recommendation for refusal, whatever the case, then putting together a package of access drawings, the further noise report that had been requested, everything else, it was probably going to amount to the same again. And my advice to them is that if members were minded to approve this in principle, then these things could be dealt with by planning condition.
Do you not think it would have possibly helped members here today make a more informed decision if we did have designs and access and highways issues were addressed, rather than because it's a cost implication refusing to do so?
I think we are where we are with the application. I'm afraid it's something we had to take a decision on, faced with the prospect that we were recommended for refusal, whether we did or didn't submit additional information.
Thank you. Panel members, Councillor Dennis has beat us to it, then Councillor Kidger.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Chave, what I'm reading between the lines from what you said is that yourself and the applicant know this stands for refusal, and you're not arguing it on the merits of what is here. You're arguing for an agreement in principle as to the wider benefits of motocross in general as a sport. That seems to be the precursor from what the member of the public raised as well. If that wasn't the case, you'd have advised the applicant to put in sort of mitigations for the highway issues that have been brought to us. So my question is, why have you proceeded with this application to date, despite the numerous objections that are in the pack?
When I was first engaged in the project over a year ago, it was brought to me as there had been communications with the wider community, attendance at rural crime meetings, etc., and there's a lot of support for this proposal coming forward. And actually, up until we submitted the application, as is recorded in the committee report, there had been no complaints about noise to the Environmental Health Officer. That is confirmed in the committee report. It's only since we have submitted this application that all this objection has arisen. So we prepared the application based on the normal professional standards to meet validation requirements, and I'm trying to search for a better term, but we've sort of had the book thrown at us as far as a great list of additional things that could be required to address the technical objections. But the thing is, with the objections in principle to greenbelt, minerals and agriculture, we didn't feel we could spend as much again on the application to try, because we still weren't going to get permission if it went according to the officer's recommendation. So what I'm saying is, if members could see a way to support this in principle, because they've weighed up the important benefits to the proposal against these matters of principle, then with the technical matters, there's a way to provide adequate safeguards through planning conditions. The access can be improved to meet acceptable standards, and the opening hours can be restricted. We propose 7 days a week, from 9 until 8, I think, because just to cover all bases. But the applicant only actually wants to probably use the track for 22 hours a week over 3 days of the week. And we could tighten that up, subject to you could delegate the condition to be agreed with the planning officer.
Councillor Dennis, 1 second. So just to clarify the comment that you just made, that you've had the book thrown at you, are you alleging that our planning officers took an approach towards this application that she wouldn't have done to any other application that came forward? Is that what you're alleging?
No, sorry, excuse me if the term came out a bit cavalier, but I was searching for a better way of describing it. No, your planning officer's been absolutely utmost professional with us at every stage. I think it's the cumulative effect of all of the consultees.
Yeah, it's just because I take off-the-cuff remarks like that very seriously. So we've got a diligent planning officer who's doing the best for the residents of Doncaster, and then you're here, and this is a recorded meeting, and the public will see this, and then you're saying that you've had the book thrown at you. That's why I needed clarification on that. So maybe be more careful with the words that you choose to use. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just really confused about what you want the committee to do, because there's information here about what has been proposed, right? But you're saying, oh no, we don't want the opening times that have been put in here. We want only 22 hours a week. And then you say, there's been no mitigations for the highways access, but you'll say, oh no, actually, after this has been approved, we'll then do that. So I don't understand, and I think this is a bit of a waste of time, really.
Okay, well, apologies for the turn of phrase I used, and it was something that, I should have probably considered better words to express what I meant. The suggestion is from the applicant that they would be happy to accept conditions if members were minded to approve the application. They'd be happy to accept conditions to restrict opening hours and improve the access.
Councillor Kidger.
Yeah, I think there's too many if-so buts. I take on board what you're saying, and I understand the reasons you are saying them. But it strikes me it's a very loose, poor application. And there are too many opening, it's like my colleague has said here, opening times. we'll do that, we'll do this. Access, we'll do that, we'll do that. So are you saying, let's say for argument's sake, if planning puts limits on noise, put conditions on your opening times, put conditions on your access, you are quite pleased to accept those type of conditions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you.
Councillor Wood?
Thank you. Just clearing up on the antisocial behaviour on bikes. Why do you think kids at Doncaster are going to want to come to a track when they're quite happy to just go running down streets with no helmets on?
Because of the outreach programmes that your council's proposing to put in place to take them out of those illegal activities and get them involved in a positive, structured sport, and all the reasons that Mr Digby described. Once you get into that sport and get involved in it, the improvements to general well-being, self-esteem, discipline. I mean, he was able to put much better than me because he's involved in the sport. That's but essentially, yeah, these programmes that are put in place by the authorities and the police.
It's just the kids that I'm talking about who ride around on bikes, they see an ASBO as being like a medal of honour. And the only way that you'll get them to come to your site is if everybody who they sell their drugs to or whatever else they're curtailing to, unless they know they're going to be on jump number 1, 2 or 3, they definitely won't be coming to use the site, and they definitely won't be doing it if there's a cost involved with it. I understand the well-being side of it and the engagement with people, but I do tend to see that this kind of activity is usually by parents that have got a passion for it themselves who want to pass it on to the kids. And while I know that these outreach programs do actually try and engage with kids who haven't got parents who engage with it, I just know that the kids that I'm seeing in my ward aren't the kind of kids that are going to go to the other side of Doncaster to ride a bike legally when they can quite happily ride it illegally around streets of the village that they live in.
I mean, as a planning consultant, I don't know how far I'm qualified to really talk about this because I'm not a community outreach worker or involved in criminal justice or anything like that. And we've all got on, experience of these things. I mean, I personally think it's sad to just forget about kids entirely and write them off as it's never going to work. I wonder if it's something that the council's neighbourhood office would comment on.
I think it was more of an observation and a comment from Councillor Wood rather than expecting you to respond to that. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, the numbers, what numbers does it attract at the moment when there's events, and what sort of numbers are you envisaging happening if planning was proposed? Was it?
So, as we set out in the supporting planning statement, the proposal is for up to 40 bikes at one time to be on the site.
Employment was mentioned earlier. How do you see it affecting local employment? Would there be much local employment?
Yeah, we suggested in our planning statement about 20 jobs created. That's not full-time jobs. There's 20 different roles for people, from trainers and coaches that are present on the site to deliver the training programmes, marshals on the site to manage what's going on, jobs in the catering, and then it's the sort of spin-off effects to the wider community as well, from visitors to the track using other pubs, shops, accommodation, etc.
What, so you'd employ local trainers and stuff? Am I getting that right?
Well, the applicants from the local area, the applicant and his business partner from the local area to start with, and that's it. That'd be very much local people first, because why would you look to hire people from further away?
Councillor Cox, I'm going to ask a question and I'll come to you if that's okay. Just so I'm clear in my mind, so we're going to have 40, do you say 40 riders a day? So in relation to car parking, I think in the actual application or the reports that I've received, it fails to clarify what that car park's going to look like and how you're going to prevent any soil or any mud or anything making itself, its way back onto the highway. Is there any reason, would there have been a cost implication to including that report as well about how a car park would have been constructed? Is that why it wasn't included?
So we haven't proposed formally laid out car park on the site. The parking is what you've seen on the site visit. It's a very large field that's very well drained, and we will manage to park on quite easily on the site visit, even though we've had quite a lot of rain recently. So there's no need to formalise it any further with laying out of parking spaces. It's just not necessary. The access, if subject to local highway authority standards, the upgrade was implemented, then that would allow for, if there was any mud on tyres, then that would stop it from being carried onto the highway.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Could you explain to me how drainage would work and how water will get to the toilet cubicles and waste will get away? Thank you.
The buildings are all proposed temporary portable porta cabin type buildings. So it would be the same as any other portaloo type thing where it gets dealt with by the tanker that comes to the site. And the portable buildings, they stand on sort of concrete feet. They don't have a base. And so we aren't actually creating any hard standing or any buildings on the site. So we're not affecting the surface water runoff. And I believe that has been agreed by the Drainage Authority, that we didn't need to provide for any formal surface water drainage system.
Sorry, you didn't answer the question. Water to provide a flush for the toilet and waste through the drainage to get the wastewater away. And not the water runoff from the building, the soil, the waste.
Right, okay, it's I believe that portaloo type things are emptied on a regular basis by the provider of the portaloos, and then in terms of water being provided on the site, it's they're called bowsers, the big water containers for any water needs on site.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Just in regards to the Chair's question, and you said about sort of drainage on site, what information is there about sort of what the drainage on site is like? Because point 4.1 in the pack says that the CDC drainage consultee objected due to insufficient drainage information which accompanies the application, and it asked for another 4 pieces of drainage information. So how can we see that there's sufficient drainage information?
So I think the site's underlain by freely draining limestone, as far as we're aware, and there isn't anything to be drained. There aren't any. We're not proposing to build development. We're not proposing to create areas of hard standing. So there isn't anything a drainage system to be designed like you would a housing estate. You've got impermeable areas and you need to create drainage for them. That we don't have that. So as far as we're aware, we've provided adequate information.
It's just that it says that there's 4 outstanding pieces of information here that they've not got. Listen, I'm not a drainage expert, so I don't know what I'm seeing, but if they say the information is not there, that's what we've got to go off. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Wood, would you like to come in?
Just a quick one, confirming, you said there's going to be 40 bikes on at any one time. Is that on the track or in the site?
It's on the site, on the track.
So how many could potentially be off the track waiting to go on the track, and how many's coming off the track? Are we saying there's going to be like 120 an hour or 120 every 2 hours? What does a session consist of?
I think it'd probably be about potentially another 50% again in terms of bikes that might be preparing to go on the track.
So, and how long does a session last for?
So sorry, I just need to double check with the applicant. 20 minutes.
So potentially then there's 40 going on, waiting, 40 on, that's 80, and 40 already come off cleaning the bikes, that's 120 in 1 hour. That sounds right. I'll just point out that.
Councillor Wood, are you trying to work out the road traffic movements? I think someone from Highways will be better at working it out and give us a better answer, because in my mind I'm trying to figure it through as well.
I just want to make sure I'm getting a true representation of what we're expecting at peak times.
And the way so if it's 40 every 20 minutes, it's 120 an hour coming on and off. Yeah, that's the way I've worked it. And someone from Highways in a minute can clarify. Any more questions, panel? No? Thank you very much, and thank you for your answers. You can go back to where you were sat. Thanks. Have we got any, first of all, do any officers want to clarify any points? And then if you've got any questions for any of the officers who are here, let officers clarify anything first, and then we can ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please. There's a little bit to unpick there, and I just want to be absolutely sure members understand what we're asking you to make a decision on, and why we've recommended, as we have done, to refuse planning permission. This isn't a decision you're being asked to make about the principle. You're being asked to make a decision on everything in the round, all of the impacts that are arising as a result of this proposed use. And that's the assessment that you've got to make, and the balancing exercise that you've got to conduct. And that's even more relevant when you look at what the Greenbelt policy requires us to do about looking at all of the planning harms in the round, and what very special circumstances might be there that clearly outweigh those harms. And so we can't unpick certain elements of the scheme and look to kind of almost reserve the consideration of other technical elements for further down the line. We as officers will always look at whether or not there are planning conditions that can be imposed that overcome grounds of refusal. But those conditions have to meet 6 specific tests, and that includes being necessarily precise and enforceable. And absent the level of technical information we need to be able to make that assessment, we can't reasonably, or in any clear sense, come to a conclusion that conditions would deal with those technical issues as it stands at the moment. There are a number of things mentioned around noise from the bikes, numbers of motorbikes coming onto the site, use of local traders for employment purposes, the wider kind of ability for the site to try to deal with antisocial behaviours. That's all laudable, but we can't connect that to a planning permission here. Which is why in the report we've given those things limited weight in our overall balance. So absolutely, we should be looking at planning conditions where we think that they are capable of overcoming grounds of refusal, but in this case we just don't have the evidence before us to make that call, and they wouldn't be meeting the tests, particularly in terms of being precise or enforceable. There are a couple of other points, forgive me, Chair, I'll go back over my notes very quickly. There was a suggestion made about the grading quality of the agricultural land as not being grade 2. Our information is that it is grade 2, best and most versatile land, and we haven't been provided with any evidence to the contrary. Normally, if applicants are trying to argue that a lower grade actually exists on a site, then we would expect to see some supporting evidence of that, and we haven't, so we have to go on the basis of the information that we have. So really, just to reiterate, the various grounds of refusal that we're recommending to you today, based on matters of principle and all of those technical issues considered in the round. There was a question specifically about drainage, which Susie's much better placed to answer. Susie, are you able to do that?
Yes, I think it's just worth mentioning that those requests by our drainage consultee, so we receive requests from all different sorts of consultees, and then as the planning officer, it's our job to assess how reasonable they are, whether or not it's something to request by condition or whether it's something to request prior to determination. And in this case, as the agent mentions, because it's a largely open field of no existing surface water drainage issues, and because there is relatively little actual additional built form being introduced, we were content that could be satisfied by a condition. So that wasn't a reason of concern in this case. Just a couple of other points to pick up on. One thing that I forgot to bring to the committee's attention was that we had received a late letter of support from the Neighbourhood and Wellbeing Officer, which was made available on public access. It's mentioned in your pre-committee amendment notes, but the officer, Neil Marshall, is available here if you'd like to ask him any questions about the efforts to tackle illegal off-road biking and the role of the application proposal in that. Just in terms of anything else, there were questions about if the site were decommissioned and returned to an agricultural land use. At the moment, the proposal is for a permanent development. There could be the option to use a time-limiting condition, making it a temporary permission only. And if that were the case, then conditions requiring decommissioning schemes to return the land to its previously use could be considered. However, as Emma's said, the current proposal is for permanent use, and so that's how we're assessing the application as it stands, rather than as a permanent, as a temporary use, which would be decommissioned at a later date. There were mentions about the distance to Clifton. I said it was 1 kilometre. The discrepancy here comes from where in the site you measure. So are you measuring from the site entrance, or are you measuring from more centrally within the site where the motocross courses are located? Yeah, I think that's the main points I picked up.
Colleagues, we'll go into debate. It's an opportunity to ask any officers any questions as well. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. As I said to the agent, I think this is the agent and applicant trying to get out of the committee whether this is an agreement in principle. And as Emma's clarified, that's not possible for us to do as a committee. There's been no substantial information provided by the agent which would turn around the planning officer's recommendation to refuse. And I do think it would be a waste of everyone's time if we continued with the debate. So I would propose, even at this stage, just to go to a vote to refuse the application.
Is Councillor Dennis's proposal seconded? Councillor Cox? Councillor Anderson had his hands up. Yep. Councillor Anderson, I will go on.
Just on the issues of modern noise complaints, has there been any? And if so, how many?
We have the environmental health officer here, who's probably best placed to answer.
Yeah, I can say we didn't have any complaints last year that came through to us. I'm not saying people didn't phone the council, but actually came through to environmental health who would investigate. We didn't have any. None.
I would just want to say I did come in here, I was 50-50 on this, I really was. But with all the ifs, buts, lack of clarity, unanswered questions, the highways issues, I can't support this.
Right, Councillor Wood, have you?
Just if we reject this, you know, before they had 14 days a calendar year, would that carry on?
So whilst there are permitted development rights for the use of the land, there aren't for the associated tracks. And so the tracks that they've installed would be unauthorised and would be liable to enforcement action. So essentially, if they continue to use those tracks as they're installed, then that would be in breach of the
permitted development regime.
So what I'm leading towards is we reject and it's closed down. We accept they've got planning permission. It ain't we reject and it goes back to how it was before. That's what I just want to be clear on.
Yep, so there is a parallel enforcement investigation in relation to this site, and so what would happen if you refuse planning permission today is that we would prepare an enforcement notice that dealt with the unauthorised tracks, because they're engineering operations that need planning permission, and that's part of the application before you. And there would be a requirement for those tracks to be levelled and the land reinstated to its former condition. The temporary use of the land, once restored, those permitted development rights for the 14 days a year would still be there. We couldn't remove those through enforcement action, but it would be the excavations and the engineering works that would be subject to that notice. What I would say is the applicant does have a right of appeal if there's a refusal, and what would normally happen if there's a parallel enforcement notice sitting there, then the two appeals could potentially run in parallel, and an inspector would make a decision on everything in the round at that point in time.
I know members are keen to move to the vote, but we've got Mr. Marshall here today, and it's always, you bring a radiance to the chamber, Mr. Marshall, that no other officer can. So I'm keen to hear your input on this, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As it said in my statement, this is a proposal at present. I was asked to come here by Dan Jordan, co-owner or co-applicant. We visited Dan in Sheffield. He showed a passion for helping young people. I fully accept what Councillor Woods said. We're not addressing all people on off-road bikes here. We're talking about young people who are on the verge, shall we say, of getting on an off-road bike. But Dan, in fairness, showed a passion to help those people. So that is what I wanted to put across in this application.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you.
There was a proposal by, was it you? Yeah, to put forward to go to the vote, and that was seconded by Councillor Dennis. Sorry, just so for the microphone for the benefit. So there's a proposal before Councillor Dennis to go to the vote, and it was seconded by Councillor Cox. So we'll move to the vote. Is there a proposal to refuse planning permission? Councillor Dennis, and is there a seconder? Councillor Anderson beat you, I'm afraid, Councillor Cox. Yeah. But yeah. And can we move to a vote? Those who are in favour? Oh, sorry. Those in favour to refuse. Put your hands up. Those who are willing to refuse. I'll be abstaining. And that planning permission is refused. I'd like to thank everybody who's come forward today to give representations, the applicants, the agent and the parish councillors and other representatives. Thank you for your time. We'll be taking a 5-minute break, a 5-minute adjournment. Thank you. Welcome back into the chamber. We're going to move on to the next application, application 3 of the day, which is 25/00582 FUL, conversion of residential dwelling into 2 flats and erection of a rear 2-storey extension at 57 Acacia Road, Doncaster, DN4 6NT. Emma, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies. You've got me for both roles on this one, so I'll just switch over to the cameras. Right, thanks very much. So this planning application proposes the conversion of a 2-bedroom dwelling into 2 one-bedroom flats at 57 Acacia Road. The proposals also include the construction of a 2-storey rear extension. The application is being presented to committee due to the level of public interest received. Concerns raised include impacts on parking and highways and impacts on neighbouring amenity. There are no pre-committee amendments to report to you and no requests to speak on the application. The dwelling is a semi-detached property, 2-storey brick built with a shared drive which leads to a single-storey detached garage at the rear. It lies within the residential property area as defined in the local plan. There is a front garden which has been hard surfaced already to provide car parking, and there is a rear garden which backs onto playing fields of the nearby school. The area is residential in nature, consisting of similar rows of properties, some of which have been extended in various ways. There's also a mix of on and off street car parking related to residential properties along the street and in the immediate locality. So this plan shows the arrangements of the parking area to the frontage of the property. Each of the flats will have an independently accessible parking space, and that complies with highway requirements for one-bedroom flats. And as you can see from the plan, the front boundary wall is to be demolished, the drop curbs installed, and a lighting column to be relocated to allow for this. And this plan also shows the grey hatched area to the rear. That's where the 2-storey rear extension will be positioned. And so just to show that extension alongside the proposed internal arrangements for each of the flats, these are the proposed floor plans. You'll see that each of the flats has their own front door, a lounge, a kitchen, a bathroom and a bedroom. In all respects, the minimum space standards are exceeded, and this will ensure the future occupants will have a good level of internal amenity. Your agenda papers set out the detailed requirements for extensions in order to ensure the residential amenities of the neighbouring properties are not harmed by the extension to the rear. That's set out at paragraph 7.21 to 7.25 of your papers at page 106 onwards. And in this case, you can see from the plans that the required 45-degree angle zone from the nearest neighbouring habitable room window is met. That means that the neighbouring property would not be adversely impacted by the extension in terms of overshadowing, and means that it's acceptable in policy terms. Furthermore, there are no windows proposed in either of the side-facing walls of the extension, so privacy levels are maintained. The rear-facing windows will look out over the rear garden and towards the school playing fields to the north, and this is no different in the arrangement to existing windows which face in that direction. And in respect of visual impact, the proposed extension will be sited to the rear of the existing house, and it'll be set with a lower ridge height and a shallower roof pitch. And what that does is ensure that it's subservient when viewed within the context of the main building, so it doesn't appear to be overly dominant in any way, and matching materials are proposed to be used. Again, all that means that the proposal complies with policy requirements in terms of extensions being of an acceptable design and form. And in terms of the site itself, some photographs for you to see. So these show the site frontage and the existing car parking area, which is to be retained to serve each of the flats. And as I said previously, the front boundary wall that you can see here in the top left photo is to be removed as part of these proposals. That lighting column you can see is proposed to be relocated. And what that will do is allow each of the parking spaces to be accessed by the occupiers of the flats independently, and Highways have confirmed that those arrangements are technically acceptable from their perspective. And just to show you the existing access arrangements to the side of the property, and again you can see the wall on the left hand side which is to be removed, and also the lamppost which will be relocated. Couple of photos just showing the rear garden of the property. The proposal is for the rear garden to be used solely by the occupiers of the ground floor flat. That's not an uncommon arrangement with circumstances like this, and there are open spaces in the locality that the first floor flat would be able to make use of. And between the rear garden and the side access arrangements that you've just seen, you'll see that there's ample room for bins to be stored to serve each of the flats too. And then just looking towards number 55, the separation that exists between this property and the application site, and in particular where the extension is proposed to be, will mean that there wouldn't be any harmful impacts on this neighbouring property either. And so, just to conclude, as set out in your papers, the site's within a suitable and sustainable location for the use proposed. There will be no unacceptable impacts to neighbours. There are no technical objections to the scheme from Highways or Environmental Health. So that means the application meets all relevant policy requirements, and the recommendation therefore is to grant permission subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Panel members will go into debate. Does anyone wish to ask any questions or make any comments on this?
Thank you, Chair. Emma, I've just got a question about the street light. Who pays for that to be removed? Is it the applicant or the council, and at what cost?
That might be something I need Andy to ask to help me with, please.
The applicant does.
And do you know how much, Andy?
God, you will ask questions. As a approximate, you're talking about £2.5 for a lighting column, and then you've got the connection and reconnection, which is about similar, so I'd say 5.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Panel? No? Is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to the imposition of planning conditions? I'll propose it. Is there anyone that can second that, please? Thank you. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate by raising your hand. Unanimous. Fantastic. Congratulations, Mr. Applicant, wherever you are. No one's in the chamber today, are they? No. Okay, thank you. Sorry, that is granted. Sorry if I've not said already. Yeah. Councillor Cox, are you making jokes at my expense again? It wouldn't be the first time, would it? We'll move on to application number 4, 25/00554/COU, change of use from dwelling Class C3 to residential children's home for 3 children, Class C2, at 47 Auckland Road, Doncaster, DN2 4AF. Mary is the planning officer on this one. Mary, would you like to introduce the item?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. This case is for change of a residential property to a children's home. It's being presented to Planning Committee given the amount of public interest in the application. Local residents have raised concerns relating to traffic disruption and parking pressures, as well as issues relating to character, amenity and security. The mid-terrace dwelling will accommodate 3 resident children between the ages of 6 and 17 years old. The home will provide supported care and accommodation. No other facilities are proposed other than those which are typically found in a family home. The children will have one-to-one supervision between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. to ensure adequate safety provision. The application site resides in a residential policy area in the local plan. The proposal is acceptable, therefore, in principle, provided there is no adverse harm to residential amenity and to visual amenity in the environment. Just wanted to say at this point that today we have Christy O'Connor speaking in support of the application. So looking at the location of the site, this is a 6-bedroom dwelling. It's a mid-terrace property which benefits from the garage to the rear, as well as a safe and secure garden, which will be for the children's use. The parking area for 2 vehicles will be created to the front of the dwelling, with a further vehicle being accommodated in the garage, thus meeting the local plan requirements. Shifts are organised in such a way to reduce the number of vehicle movements, and visits from relatives to the home are unlikely. Having reviewed the details, Highways have no objection to the proposal, noting that the site is sustainably located with bus and rail links close by,
and the city centre within walking distance. The applicant has provided a travel plan and is also encouraging cycling and carpooling. Minimal alterations will be needed to the property internally to facilitate the change. There will be no alterations required in respect of the ground floor, which will continue to be used as a living, dining and kitchen, accommodation. The ground floor also benefits from a cloakroom WC as well as a utility room. Across the first and second floors, the 6 bedrooms will be used to accommodate the children, 2 on the first floor and 1 on the second, as well as providing 2 sleeping rooms for staff and a separate office. The rooms on the second floor are lit by a front-facing dormer window and a rear roof light. The applicant has confirmed that they have had a fire safety assessment undertaken and they're aware of the changes needed in order for the property to comply. It will be necessary for all internal works to comply with building regulations, however, this is not a material planning consideration. The impacts of the use are considered similar to those of a larger single household in terms of comings and goings. Noise disturbance to neighbours will be limited by the rear extensions, increasing the sense of separation between the properties, particularly in the high circulation area immediately to the rear of the property. Rear to rear, there's a good separation distance and the garden boundary is secure. The one-to-one supervision between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. will ensure the children are suitably supervised, which will also help in reducing any impact to the amenity of the neighbours. There have been no objections from South Yorkshire Police or from Children's Services. The area isn't one of heightened criminality or antisocial behaviour. This application, if approved, will require CCTV to be installed, as has been the case with other applications with similar low levels of crime. Children's Services note the proximity to suitable schools and the fact that there isn't similar provision in the area already. Whilst assessing the application, I visited the sites a couple of times. It's just a picture of it here showing it's a characterful mid-terrace property in Thorne Road Conservation Area, currently empty, and they're looking in need of a bit of care and attention, I think. The garden benefits from a patio which is fully enclosed by walls and rear extensions, ensuring the safety and security of the children. It also provides access to the garage to the rear. The applicant is awaiting planning permission before undertaking any work on the garden, which will involve the improvement of the patio area with appropriate furniture, the laying of a new lawn with appropriate landscaping, designated play space and age-appropriate outdoor equipment, as well as space allocated for planting activities. There are a couple of photographs here of Auckland Road taken on one of my visits. The street has a mixture of off and on-road street parking split fairly equally. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. The Thorne Road Conservation Area contains a planned suburban expansion of Doncaster's residential area. The houses are well detailed. The plots generally larger, typically dating from the late 19th to early 20th century. Buildings tend to be red brick with decorative features, windows, doors, chimney bays, bay windows, gables, etc. Boundary walls, often with decorative copings, are a feature of the area, as are the street trees and larger gardens, particularly the closer you get to Thorne Road. The Conservation Officer has objected to the removal of the front boundary to create the off-road parking area, given that this proposal would change the use of the property. These permitted development rights would no longer apply. However, these rights have been utilised by many householders along the street already in different ways, and this has changed the character and appearance of the immediate locality. Just put some photographs there of where the boundaries have been taken down. These are the properties closest to the application site. As a result, whilst the new parking area within the site frontage would change the appearance of the site, there's no justification to resist the application on this basis, given the situation around the application property. Okay, so key considerations, conclusions to bear in mind here. So the principle of the use is acceptable. The change of use from C3 to C2 children's care home is acceptable in policy terms. The internal living space and private garden are appropriate for the proposed use. The noise and activity associated with the proposal is acceptable, and the amenity impact on neighbouring residents would not be demonstrably different or harmful from the existing use as a dwelling house. The location does not suffer from elevated levels of antisocial behaviour or criminality, and there's insufficient evidence to suggest that the proposed use would result in an increase in crime. CCTV and one-to-one supervisory staffing will ensure a safe, healthy and prosperous neighbourhood. The site provides a suitable amount of off-road car parking in accordance with the standards in the local plan, and the proposal involves a change to the site frontage, as I've pointed out, through the creation of the new parking area. However, given the similar changes along the street, it's not considered that this is unduly harmful. Given the above, I'd like to recommend that members grant planning permission today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Miss Christie. Hello, hi. I understand you're going to be speaking in favour of the application. If you'd like to come forward to the front. No, right to the front, you can. Yeah. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. If you can address the panel, and when you've got 30 seconds remaining, I'll let you know. Press the red button when you're ready to speak.
So I'm here in support of the application and representing the director and the planning agent, and they've given me a bit of a statement to read. So I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. The application is not simply about the change of use, it's about children, some of the most vulnerable children who need stability care and the chance to grow up in a safe, nurturing home. At Willow Cottage, which is the name we're proposing, we're having a very small children's home. A lot of providers would see a 6-bedroom home and they try and maximise that. We're not about that. We want it to be the best environment for our children. We want it to be as normal as possible, that replicates a foster home. I've previously been a foster carer. I didn't have to get planning. I looked after quite a few children, and I want our children to feel like they're in as normal family life as they possibly can. We work with like a love-led practice base, where we help our children just kind of feel as loved as they possibly can, and go above and beyond for them. Obviously, a key point they want to stress is staffing, and obviously the car parking would also been raised, but concerns are often raised about movements in and out of the homes. To address this, our staff work extended shifts, similar to those discussed earlier on, and they're staggered as well, so that people aren't handing over to each other often. We also have quite a few staff that don't drive and they live locally. So our deputy manager, for example, lives in Wheatley, so he would also walk to work. And there's 3 of our staff members that don't drive, but they live in Doncaster and they would be getting public transport. So that would obviously decrease the amount of vehicles that are required outside. And as Mary mentioned earlier, around public transport and carpooling and cycling to work. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've opened quite a few children's homes. I'm a consultant. I have my own children's home company, and with the experience of myself and the manager that I'm bringing on board and our previous track record, we've gained outstanding ratings with Ofsted as a registered manager and as a responsible individual. I've won an award for outstanding contribution to social care, which then I went to meet Lord Palmer at the House of Lords. I've got extensive, probably about 15 years with fostering children's homes and adults with learning disabilities. So it's not something that we're just walking into, like we know what we're doing and we know how to do it and we want to do it with this home in mind. But we want to make absolutely clear that we're not planning on operating the home until it's been registered and approved by Ofsted. We know there's a lot of providers out there that will do so, and we are not one of them. We want to make sure that Ofsted is fully satisfied with everything in place to protect and support the children. Obviously Doncaster faces a shortage of suitable local placements at times. I've worked in Doncaster homes, Haxley, Tick Hill. We've taken Doncaster children with some really, really successful outcomes in the past. And we just want to try and help where possible and we're able to, children stay as close to their families as they can do, and access stability, love and professionals for the care that they need. So it is a modest, carefully planned proposal, but one with life-changing impact. We're hoping to give vulnerable children the security and opportunities we want for our own. We respectfully asked if you would approve the application to allow us to provide a safe and supportive home to the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, Councillor Anderson, got a question.
Yeah, just something I want to clarify. It's been like a quiz puzzle for me. On page 115, paragraph 1.5, so is it a 5 or 6 bedrooms? Because as you read that, the dwelling has a total of 5 bedrooms across the first and second floor. 3 bedrooms will be used for each of the children, fine. 2 on the first floor, 1 on the second, leaving the ground floor accommodation unchanged. Then it says 1 bedroom on the first floor will be used for staff sleeping, as well as another bedroom on the second floor. So as I were reading it, that's the 5 bedrooms, but then it says the remaining bedroom on the first floor will be used as a staff. So to me that meant 6, but it says 5. Maybe I'm just looking at it totally wrong.
I can answer that, Councillor Anderson. Sorry for the discrepancy there. In the report I've referred to it being 5 bedrooms because I hadn't counted the smallest box room as a bedroom, which is actually down as the office now. So if you look at the number of rooms, you've got 6 rooms. 5 of those are going to be used as bedrooms. 3 of those for the children. 2 for the staff, so that there's a separate sleeping area. And then there is an office. The smaller box room, which I'd called the bedroom, as in 6 bedrooms altogether. I've just referred to it differently, so that sorry about that. I do apologise. No, it's a discrepancy in terms of the first part of the report and then how it's described at the end. I did notice that. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Panel, any questions?
Thank you, Mr O'Connor, for coming. I wanted to ask, what are the characteristics of the children that will be at the home?
So we're taking children with emotional and behavioural difficulties that might have experienced trauma or they might have attachment difficulties. As it's a multi-bed children's home, these are usually low-level children. In the 2 beds in the solo homes, you normally get the more complex children, which would require more support. We would match carefully to the local area. We want to ensure that the neighbours are happy, and we want to make sure that the children live in a place that's suitable for them. So if they've got some kind of risk where their location's not right, then we would look at a child that's more suitable.
And will they be attending schools in the area?
Yeah, we're hoping that they already do, fingers crossed, but where they don't, we would encourage that. Unless there is, for example, some children have special educational needs and they might need to go a little bit further away, and we support them to do that as well.
And finally, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about point 1.3 on page 115. At the end of that, it says, a manager and a deputy manager will also be present at the property between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Monday to Friday. But the kids won't be there at that time, right?
Sometimes they will be there, sometimes they won't. It depends obviously on their plans and their education that they've got in place. There are some children that do struggle accessing education and might have tutoring off site, for example. But usually the managers will sometimes maybe pop in just to say hello in an evening, or like take an activity, or even go on shift. There's a lot of managers that do that, but our deputy, to start off with, we're predominantly on shift until the home's at capacity, which we're not planning on doing straight away unless there was a sibling group that required it. We kind of stay at like 1, then 2, and then potentially in 6 to 8 months' time have 3. Our deputy would remain on shift until that 3rd child moves in. But like I said, they don't drive, so that's fine for us. But they do, sorry, they live locally, that's fine.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Is this already advertised on the internet?
Sorry, do you mean is it on the website?
Yeah, is it Willow, what's it called?
Willow Cottage.
Yeah, Willow Cottage, is that it, is it, yeah? Because it talks about 6 bedroomed, large terraced house in Doncaster. That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, it's a 6-bedroom property, yeah.
And just back onto what Councillor in front said. So how many staff's going to be on site at any one time? Because reading this is 2 staff members will work 48-hour shifts. A third one will work 7 while 11, and then we're going to have 2, a manager and deputy manager, between 9 and 3. So is that 5?
Sorry. So there's 3 on shift that we work in. Like I said, the deputy would be included in that number initially, and then once there are 3 children, the deputy will be off. So maximum would be your 3 working on shift, and then your 2 that are going to be kind of doing management hours.
You said earlier that your staff hopefully going to be local, and some will be walking, biking, and what have you. Parking spaces, we've got 3. What would happen if you didn't have people local working there?
So we've already recruited our first team of people. So we have 8, including the manager, 6 staff on the shop floor, and then the deputy, well, including the deputy. So we have 7 people already recruited. 3 of them, as mentioned, don't drive. 1 lives in Wheatley, around the corner. If we needed extra space, we are really close to a lot of car parks in the local area because we're near to town. We're about a 10-15 minute walk away, I think. We would encourage people to meet up and share or use public transport.
Panel, I'm going to propose that we suspend standing orders because we've gone over 3 hours and we can continue the meeting. Is everyone in agreement? Yeah, come on, be a bit more enthusiastic about it. Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, so the company's already recruited for the posts for this home?
No, it's not been approved. We've got to have the planning permission in place before we get the Ofsted registration. We have the application in for Ofsted. We had an inspector, but the planning took a little bit longer, so we've just got to go through the process again. But it's not currently operational. There's no one living there.
But are the staff already recruited?
In order to register with Ofsted, you have to have a full team that's fully recruited with the training and everything in place first. We weren't expecting the process to take a little bit less time, so we did recruit in advance to make sure that if we did get the planning previously and the registration, because they were quite quick Ofsted previously, that we would be able to show Ofsted that we're doing everything and we've got everything in place ready to open the home.
Councillor Dennis, I sense you've got another question. I can see the look on your face.
Yeah, it's not planning, so I'll leave it after this, but it just seems...
Is your question around, is it what's milling in your mind is how they recruited before the application's approved?
Yeah, and is it a sensible business decision to do so before planning permission's approved? But
it's not a planning consideration.
No, it's not.
No.
Sorry, just to clarify, they're not started in their roles. It's just their onboarding process. The people that I've worked with previously in the past, they're happy to stay in their roles until and if, obviously, the planning permission and the Ofsted registration gets passed.
Again, not a planning question, but what would go around in my mind is that if you've recruited staff from elsewhere, what happens to those care homes with that shortage of staff then? But anyway, you don't have to answer that. It's just it's not a planning question, but that's the question I would then have going through my mind if I was looking at it from a children's services point of view. Panel members, any planning questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for attending. You can sit there. In fact, there's no other planning applications, or you can go to the back. Wherever you. Thank you. Do officers wish to make any clarifications or anything before we go to debate?
2 very small points from me, Chair, if I may. Condition 3 at page 128 of the papers deals with restriction on staff numbers to align with what you've just been told around numbers of staff on the site at any one time. And just to make the point around parking levels and the 3 parking spaces across the site, that meets the policy requirement for this type of use. So that level of parking in this location is acceptable. Thank you.
Committee will go into debate. Does any member wish to have any questions answered or make any comments on this? Councillor Kidger, no? Councillor Dennis?
Of course I do, Chair, thank you. It's not about the application per se, it's more a question to Mary about public representations. The site notice is put in the Sheffield Star. Why, as opposed to the Doncaster Free Press, or is that like the parent company that you include?
As far as I'm aware, we did back quite a while ago used the Doncaster Free Press, but there was a decision taken, it was a long time ago now, that the advertisements should go in the Sheffield Star. I don't know why that decision was taken, to be quite honest, Councillor Dennis, but that was the decision. I would need to ask our technical support team to answer that for you, but that is the paper that the applications such as these would be advertised in, generally speaking, nowadays, as far as so.
Thank you for that. It's just interesting that it's not done in the Doncaster paper is all. Thank you.
Just to make clear, the reason for needing to publish in the press is because the site lies in the conservation area, and that's why we published a site notice as well, which you would have seen on one of the lampposts and one of the photos that Mary displayed. So there are different requirements for different application types as to whether we need to publish in the press. That's the reason in this case that we needed to. And yeah, it's a decision that was taken certainly before my time, but one that was taken to advertise in that publication. There's nothing in the legislation that requires it to be a certain type of publication within a certain area. So just to give a little bit more context to that.
Is it something that could be taken back to planning colleagues to have it presented in Doncaster Free Press? Not this application, but for future applications.
What we'll do is we'll make a recommendation after this application's concluded. We'll make a recommendation as a committee. We'll have a talk about that, then we can push that back if that's okay, Councillor Dennis. Anything else? Is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to imposing of planning conditions? Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Anderson? Oh, sorry, was it? Sorry, it was. Did you?
Yeah. I'll do it. You want to second it? Yeah.
So, Councillor, you've got that, yeah? And Councillor Anderson seconded. And Councillor Anderson seconded. And we'll move to a vote. All those in favour in granting planning permission, please indicate by raising your hand. Those against? Those abstaining? That is passed. Thank you very much. Panel, just to clarify, we are going to get clarification as to why the decision was taken with Sheffield Star. Harry, I'm sure it's a wonderful publication, but not as good as the Donny Free Press, of course. And if needs be, we'll then, when it comes back to committee, we can make a recommendation accordingly. Is that okay? If that concludes today's business, thank you very much, and thank you for being so... Sorry? Is there another agenda item? Oh. Yep, appeal decisions, agenda item 6. This report is for information only. Does any member wish to speak on the item? No. Okay, good. Can I ask that committee members move that it be noted? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, officers, for attending today, and I bring today's meeting to a close. Thank you.